All right, King Killers, we're covering chapter 6 in this episode. We have about a 5-minute part where there was a really bad storm, so there's a little bit of a background noise for about 5 minutes of the episode, but it's not that big of a deal. It goes away pretty quick. But on this episode, we discuss Bridge 4, one of my favorite chapters in the book. Lots of great things to talk about on Kaladin's super fun time adventure. We also talk about dominating latrine duty, Sadeas throwing pizza parties, and the darker side of Kaladin's Leatherface friend. So sit back and enjoy. All right, welcome back to the King Killer Podcast. I'm Dan, and I got with me the Gaz of podcast host, Tim. What's going on, Tim?
What a dick.
AKA Gaz.
I'm doing all right. I don't appreciate the comparison to Gaz because Gaz is a scumbag, but I am here, and you are going, you're being kind of a jerk to start out, but that's, it's to be expected.
I think it was pretty spot on. I think that's a pretty accurate portrayal of your... It's not so much like the looks or anything. You don't look... I'm not saying you look like Gaz. I'm saying it's like your personality is like his.
It's more of an insult, you fucking asshole. I'm not saying you look like him. I'm saying you act like this guy that is a horrible, wretched person. Oh, okay. So I have two eyes that function.
Yeah. It's not like I'm not calling you one-eyed. Like, settle down. Saying you have the personality of this terrible, horrible human being.
I don't know if it's accurate. I feel like he's kind of short and punchy. But it's hard.
That's another thing. He's a lot taller than you. I'm not saying you're tall. You're obviously super short.
What I'm saying is it's hard to tell if he's short because Kaladin's so freaking tall that everybody that he's face to face with has to look up, But I think we can
to give everybody go ahead and give everybody an update on where you're at in the books.
Yes, they just did the sidecar, the little slant run with the. Started to train that way. It looks like Kaladin at this point basically has his group. Like he's pretty much got most of his dudes in line at this point. And so they started to try a new method.
Sideways carry. He's talking about holding the bridge sideways.
Yeah, which creates a defensive shield towards the arrows coming, which works, but it fucks up the overall attack. And Kaladin immediately, like he has all the traits of a good leader because he immediately notices how it fucked up, and then he like takes blame, even though, he creates blame in a way. The whole thing plays out interestingly because of the way Gaz like thinks he supports it just because he thinks it's going to get Kaladin killed, which is his entire goal. And now he's got the backing of his other guy in his little group there that wants to make sure that he gets killed.
Yeah, there's a great part where Gaz, sees them carrying like that, and then he's like asked him what he's doing. And then he starts to think like, as Kaladin's coming up to him, and he's like, "Storm you? Like, don't be fucking intimidated by this guy. Don't let this guy intimidate you."
Yeah, it's pretty great. After Kaladin like nearly chokes him to death, now he basically in a way has to do his bidding. Yet he's still above him. It's an interesting.
He's scared. He's scared shitless of him. Like after that time where he fucking throttles him, like the next time he does something to the bridge. Oh, he tells the bridge crew they don't have to listen to Kaladin, except for on bridge runs. And he doesn't have any authority like when they're on their off time. And so Kaladin starts walking over to him, and he like takes off running, like goes and hides behind some barrels.
Yeah, after that I picture him flinching every time they're around each other. Like he's just like but then with Shallan, it's like her and Yasna are together, and they just kind of go back and forth. There's some really cool... One of the chapters I read was really great in terms of like the word the way it's written, Sanderson kind of impressed me with that chapter because of like his prose is really creative and pretty great, where he creates some words and shows just how clever Shallan is. So I like those. I like those two characters and how they play off each other. It's really cool. And I think there's a Kaladin, another, what do you call it, backstory, where he's called Cal with his dad and that whole
Yeah,
thing. So
his dad's like fucking drunk, and the townspeople come knocking on his door.
Yeah, they're gonna rob him, and then he calls them out, and then they all just basically turn and walk away.
It's like, yeah, guys, I can recognize you. We've lived together for like 30 years. I know who you are. Like, it's not me.
Yeah, they're wearing like sackcloth masks.
Yeah,
like, dude, like, I know you're limp. Like, I fixed your fucking leg. Like, you're the reason you can still. I'm the reason you can still walk.
Your crutch has made by me on the side of it.
Yeah, that's pretty good stuff.
Like, that is the crutch I sell. That is my brand of crutch.
Yeah, and one of the cool things one of the cool things about reading the physical book is you start to piece together, I'm starting to piece together what some of the first images that are from Shallan's like sketches that are in the book, the physical book that I have. I'm starting to understand where they even come from, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So that's I just kind of got to that point.
Yeah, you're gonna get through a great part in book 1 by the time we do record the next episode, because the aftermath of the sideways carry is pretty great.
I think they call it side carry. I was calling it sidecar.
Yeah,
but whatever. Karaoke, remember? High school or elementary school, it was literally just walking like sideways, and they called it karaoke for some reason.
Oh yeah, when it wasn't like walking sideways, it was forward and back, like right foot in front of your left, and then right foot behind your left.
Yeah, but you would be doing it facing the wall, but going.
Yeah, you would go sideways, but you're doing like crossing front to back with your foot. You're not just shuffling.
So when we get to that chapter, we'll just call it karaoke, just to make it really understandable and clear for everybody that this is the karaoke chapter where they're all doing karaoke.
Yeah,
that'll make it really easy for people to understand.
Yeah, they'll be like, so they're like singing? No, running karaoke, run karaoke. And it's real easy to describe because like people are like visualizing it in their head. Like, so his foot's in front of the left and then behind the left. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, if you had Mr. Morgan in elementary school gym, then you would know what we're talking about.
Yeah, should have had better teachers.
Well, I don't know if it was better, but it was the one that we had.
I mean, the teacher taught us the correct language. They don't even fucking use the right words, so. Clearly, we had better teachers.
Okay.
So there, stick that in your face.
Boom, got him.
But yeah, so today we are starting with, or we're only going to cover chapter 6, titled Bridge 4. And in this chapter, Kaladin, he's at the Shattered Plains. He gets sold into one person's group. He's handed off to Gaz to be in Bridge 4. And they have a lot of fun carrying the bridge for the army before a big battle. So it sounds like a really good old time.
If I will say, if they do this as a series and they do this well, they'll be selling shirts that say Bridge 4 on them.
Yeah, this should be. It should be one. This chapter should be just a single episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like nothing else in the episode, just this.
It's huge. It's huge on like world building, character development, setting the tone. I mean, it builds everything out. It's such a big build. And I'm not that far. We just talked about how far I've gotten, but it's huge in terms of Kaladin's image within the people that are around him and him building himself out of, basically garbage to now hitting rock bottom basically, and then building self-esteem and purpose.
This is
awesome. It's great.
This is the chapter where when I read this, I was like, okay, now I'm fucking super into these books. because like I mean it starts off good. I like it, and it was I'm going at that point after the first 5 chapters. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna read this book. But after I read the 6th, I was like, okay, no, this is my type of book. And I was like, now you're getting into like a a Spartacus type dude that is just being put through the fucking ringer. And I like those stories where someone's is got to grind through some hellish experience to come out the other side of it and try to struggle and strive, especially a guy like a Kaladin figure where it's a tough ass dude and you put a tough ass dude into a brutal environment and see how they handle it.
Well, but then also with his reluctance to help, with a natural want to help, but then reluctant, and then just everything else that's been built up creates a tremendous situation for that particular character. But going back to what you said, yeah, I mean, by like Zeth's chapter, that one of the early chapters, by then I'm kind of like, all right, this is going to be really good. I like this. But by this chapter, this is where I can start recommending it to other people. Even though I'm early on in the books, it's like this looks like it's going to be really good. And this chapter, really, really sells it in terms of his ability to build out a story and everything I mentioned before. You can tell like he's doing a really artful job of presenting Kaladin, who we just talked about how he built him out and gives him all these traits, and then really puts him to task in a super, super awesome, interesting way.
Yeah, and it's written well in the fact that, it starts off where, it's bad, and then like when Kaladin thinks, all right, finally, we're done. And it's like, nah, it just started, man.
Yeah, it's fucking brutal. Which also makes a lot of sense for where it's like, why is it so? It's very heartless. It's very like lacking of emotion in that group. It's like, why is everybody so? Well, I mean, you can understand because they're kind of like slaves anyway, but it's bad. It's real bad, and once it continues to move, you start to understand why. But even here, his first trip as in Bridge 4, he separates himself. Yeah, and we'll get to it, but when his training kicks in, which again is awesome because we get that build up that we have prior, so we already know of his history. So yeah, when his training kicks in and all of his knowledge kicks in, it makes him separate, and Gaz doesn't like it. He's not a fan of old Kaladin.
Well, at the beginning of the chapter, it starts off with another death rattle with "I'm cold, mother. I'm cold, mother. Why can I still hear the rain? Will it stop?" Collected on Vivishush, 1172, 32 seconds pre-death. Subject was a light-eyed female child, approximately 6 years old. And there's not anything that I have to note on it other than the fact that this is a 6-year-old child. And when you understand the death rattles and stuff, like, those kind of things stick out to you. But until you get further in the book, there's nothing really to note on it. But I like how it starts where, Kaladin steps down, gets out of the wagon. You're on, it's these crater-like formations, which is, there's these big gaps in between the formations. So it's kind of think of it as like plateaus with just giant craters kind of in the middle of them, creating these little chasms that separate the different plateaus. Except for the ground is extremely rough and rugged, where it's, a wagon really can't roll on it very well. But they get to this, this big army, and you see like around them spread the signs of an army long settled. This war had been going on since the old king's death nearly 6 years ago. So just reminding you that these are guys this is an army that's been doing this shit now for 6 years. And so you're seeing that there's a bunch of, there's basically a settlement being built around this army. It's not just, these guys showed up onto the battlefield and they're going to go fight and, they're advancing. It's like, no, they've like set up camp in this place. This is like their home now for the last 6 years.
Yeah. And it seems so this war kicked off with Zeth killing the king, right? Was that what created this 6 years? Was that 6 years prior? Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting that they mentioned what they say about it. Stories of that night, the night when Parshendi tribesmen had murdered King Gavilar. So obviously, it seems like that the word got out. Was that their intention? I don't know. I still kind of had a question in my mind about that.
Well, like you've read part, I mean, it's came up in parts you've read. It's not like talked about in depth or anything yet, but like as far as what you've read, they talk about like the Parshendi took credit for it.
Yeah.
And they just don't know why. They've never explained to these people why they did what they did.
Because they just signed a truce, right?
Yeah.
And so the whole thing was like, why would they do that after signing a truce?
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, it was the Parshendi that did Sinzeth, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. He talks about it in his part.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He mentions like, he's like, why are they doing this? Why are they having me do this? It's like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's another really, really interesting character who like doesn't have free will.
Yeah,
you know, but it's so interesting.
But and I also like the part that like he's Kaladin, you know, when we first see him, like his whole mission is to get here, is to get to this place, and he's with Amaram, so he was with Amaram, so he would have been in Sadeas's army had he got called up. And then he gets there and he's like, they didn't seem particularly disciplined. They roamed the camp in packs with coats undone. Some pointed and jeered at the slaves. This was the army of a high prince, the elite force that fought for Alcar's honor. This was what Kaladin had aspired to join. I like that aspect of it, of he's coming there and he's, even though he's been through some terrible shit and, obviously something happened with Amaram that, in Amaram's army where he got screwed and became a slave. But even still, now he's getting there and still the veils are coming off his eyes. And now he's seeing, the truth of how naive he was to think that, he's going to come there and it's going to be these heroic, upright, elite, upstanding people. And he gets there and he's like, man, no, this is a joke. What are we doing here?
Yeah, it's interesting. It seems like the elite force that he's seeking either doesn't exist or he hasn't seen it yet, right? I think part of that is we talked about his high expectations prior. It seems like he would need to create or be a big part of that elite force because we've seen him lead men in battle, right?
Yeah.
Early on. And the way he was doing it was in a way that would suggest something that could eventually evolve into like an elite force because they have camaraderie, they have reason to trust one another. What he's seeing here is not that. I mean, they don't seem even disciplined.
And if he was in a Dalinar's group, he would see a different thing. Like Dalinar wouldn't tolerate that shit. He wouldn't tolerate guys walking around with unbuttoned uniforms and just pointing and mocking slaves and shit like that. Dalinar would put an end to that. But he's the only one. The soldiers, you hear his son talking about, can't fucking drink, can't fucking wear what I want and all this kind of shit. And so they complain about, these things. But when Kaladin is seeing that, that's what he expected. That was what Kaladin thought was going to be the norm. And it turns out that's the exception. And it's, it's only Dalinar that is, enforcing this kind of shit where he's like, look like fucking soldiers, look like you guys are meant to be here, like that he's basically he's leading them by example, but also making sure that they're an example for everybody else. But it's also practical purposes because, there was the fact that he was passed out drunk when his brother needed him. And so he's making sure that doesn't happen again, where that's, partial reason for why you don't drink on the job. You never get sloppy drunk. Even when you're not on the job, don't get sloppy drunk. We're in a war.
Is this Sadeas's? Is he the one sort of in charge of this area?
Yeah. Kaladin's under Sadeas's army right now.
Yeah, because he seems to be very much at odds with that whole family, right?
Yeah, because there's a part, where Sadeas and Dalinar both talk about the bridges and that you've read, and Dalinar is like, he doesn't use bridge crews like this. And he's like, why don't you give him armor and all that kind of stuff? Sadeas is like, well, that's the point is I want these guys targeted. I want the Parshindi aiming at the bridge crews and wasting their arrows on them because those slaves are easily replaceable, whereas the soldiers are not. And so I don't want them firing off arrows at my soldiers. And so not only can we move faster, but they're not. So he has a purpose. He's not just doing it to be cruel. He's doing it because it's effective.
It happens to be cruel.
Yeah.
It's also effective towards his goal, the way that he sees it.
Yeah. So, I mean, in that, with where you're at in the book, I mean, Kaladin, is when he sees the destruction the side carry causes, then he's like, oh shit, now I get that I was missing a piece of the puzzle. I don't understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's constantly talking about why are we doing this? Why don't we have armor? But yeah, so yeah, he's definitely in Sadeas's crew. Sadeas is the one that, uses the bridge crews like this. But I also like that when they're lining them up, like Bluth and Tag are going around, like, pushing people in the back, getting them in order, and they're all standing with their puffed out chests, but they stay clear of Kaladin. They're still like, yeah, I'm not fucking with that dude.
We'll use these other guys for examples. Yeah, we're not gonna fuck with that guy.
I like push the 6'8" fucking built 19-year-old kid that could fucking crush us.
I like this guy that's next to Kaladin, where he's basically like, I thought we were meant for mine work. Why, this won't be so bad at all. We'll be cleaning latrines or maintaining roads. And Kaladin thinks, odd to look forward to latrine work. But I like thinking that this guy, I think, for one, it says a lot that they're looking forward to like cleaning bathrooms.
Yeah.
But it's not even bathrooms, latrines. It's disgusting. But I'm also thinking like, everybody has their purpose. Kaladin, is a natural fighter. Maybe this guy's purpose is latrine duty. He's like the Michael Jordan of cleaning latrines. Yeah, he's just super gifted.
Wait till they get a load of me. Again, I'm going to be blasting nips off left and right.
No one's ever seen someone drain a latrine as quick and as efficiently as I. He's covered from head to toe in shit and piss. That guy. There he is.
Fucking revolutionizes latrine duty. It's an unspoken part of the books. They sure it's going to be huge in book 5. Is they're going to refer back to this guy and how he revolutionized latrine duty in the army.
There'll be
talking about him.
Yeah, there'll be like an apparatus or a new way to design latrines named after him. We don't know his name here, but it'll be named after him.
Yeah, they'll have like a statue of like, it's like 5 guys dropping a deuce, and then him with like a shovel, like scooping it all up at the same time.
It'll be like the Brachius pump or whatever. I don't know. Whatever this guy's name is. Dark-skinned man who talked to Kaladin about escaping. That's his name.
Latrinius.
Latrinius the faithful.
Yeah.
And he's got a pump apparatus.
Latrinius the cleanly. Yeah. Yeah, he's going to be huge in book 5. Wait for that one. But yeah, and I like that Kaladin's like, hoped. Yes, he discovered that he could still hope. A spear in his hand, an enemy to face. He could live like that. I like that, they build this up because they're going to fucking rip the ground out from under him right away, where he's like, all right, man, if I can just get in here, get a spear, like, I got some hope. I can, as long as I can do my thing, like, at least that's a life worth living. I can die doing that. And they're like, yeah, that's not what's going to happen to you at all.
Yeah, and it's particularly painful because he even almost begs for it, and it ain't happening.
Yeah,
it just gets pulled out from under him, which is cool because we're kind of learning here, what's keeping him alive and what his natural inclinations are, which is also interesting for somebody like him because he does have that inner turmoil of he's not just murder for murder, but if he can just fight, it's something, because he feels at home while he's doing it. We've learned that much.
He's close to, like, this was his goal, was to get here, and now he's here, and it's like, yeah, I'm a slave, but if they put a spear in my hand, they'll see what I can do. I can change it. It's because it's not like, you know, you obviously you don't know the circumstances of what happened, but we know like it's not like he's like I did some fucking terrible shit, and he's like no, I got screwed. So he's just like just put a spear in my hand and let me do my thing, and you know you'll see that I was fucking screwed over and that I can serve a purpose. So
Yeah,
it's
I
not
get
like
the
he's going in like, yo, don't put a spear in my hand because then I might fuck up again. He doesn't have that mentality because he clearly doesn't think he's done anything wrong.
yeah. I mean, the feeling, and I'm sure it sounds like it's going to be revealed, but the feeling that I get is that somehow he got screwed over because it doesn't seem like, or maybe he made a mistake that he regrets or something like that, but he doesn't have that. It doesn't seem that he has that willfulness to do something that would be corrupt or punishable.
No,
Would be a
and you
mistake
can
or
see he
something.
feels like he got screwed because, like, when Tvlakov and one of the previous chapters mentions Amaram after he's like, I'm done with
Yeah, to hold
revenge. I don't have any
grievances.
desire
Yeah.
for it. And then he mentions Amaram, and then in Kaladin says, like, I'll fucking strangle him. I'll strangle him until his eyes pop out. And it's like, yeah, okay, buddy.
Yeah, that's great because he's like, no, I don't have I don't have revenge. I've given up on revenge, and then immediately after, it's like on the same page.
Yeah,
he's extraordinarily seeking revenge. He's very vengeful.
yeah, and then so Tvlakov, is meeting with some important looking light-eyed woman, and she looked like Laurel, who Laurel was the girl in the first. It comes up in the first flashback scene. It's like the daughter of the mayor of the town he grew up in, who clearly, had a thing for him, but because he's a dark eye, she was like, "Why don't you become a soldier and win yourself a shard blade? Then you become, light eyes, and then you're someone I could hook up with." Because when he's like, yeah, my dad wants me to be a surgeon, she's like, what? I thought you were going to be a soldier and win a fucking shard blade. What are you doing? And he's just like, why does she care? It's like another one of those characters like fucking reminds me of Kvothe, although he's like 12 years old, so he should be oblivious. But yeah, where it's like, yeah, dude, it's clear why she wants you to go do this. But yeah, that's the first mention of her. He, kind of hints at her, and then, we'll find out who Laurel is.
Well, there's two
chapters.
There's two mentions there. Her dress was a deep crimson. She looked as much as Laurel had at the end, which just hints at death, or it sounds like death to me.
And then,
I don't know.
And we also there's another mention of his brother again, like too. Like we get these mentions of names, but then we don't find out who they are, until the flashbacks. But yeah, so that's the first mention of her. And then he mentions that this light-eyed woman that Tvlakov's talking to is probably fourth or fifth Dan, wife and scribe to one of the camp's officers. So fourth or fifth Dan's kind of middle of the road for light eyes. Like, the first Dan is the king, and then the second Dan is the high princes. So he's a couple levels, 2 or 3 levels below the high princes. And that's, that's his wife, or, it's a person in that sphere, this lady is. And then I like her negotiation with Tvlakov where, you're asking 2 emerald bronze a head, perhaps 1.5. And what would I use them for? I wouldn't trust men this filthy near food. We have parshmen to do most other work. If your ladyship is not pleased, I could approach other high princes. No, she said, smacking the slave she'd been regarding as he shied away from her. 1.25. They can help cut timber for us in the northern forest. She trailed off as she noticed Kaladin. Here now, this is far better stock than the others. So it points out too, again, because I keep mentioning that fact that who I would really like to hear he should write a solo book on the story of that dude that tried to attack Kaladin for his food, because like Bluth and the other guy are scared of Kaladin. Tvlakov's scared of Kaladin. She sees Kaladin. She's like, hey, now this dude is something. And that's the guy that this idiot boy tried to steal his food from was like, you know what? All these people eating food here, I'm going to pick Kaladin and I'm going to try to steal his shit and see how that goes.
I mean, I guess you can pin it on they're all sort of starving, or it's almost like a prison thing where it's like first day this guy comes in, then, well, no, that wouldn't even be.
But still, like, what is, like, you know, like everybody else should have food too, or unless like Kaladin just eats super slow, and so everybody else finishes their food first, and then Kaladin's just sitting there, you know, munching one pea at a time.
Yeah, that's
like,
pretty
he's the only
funny.
one with food left.
This guy has terrible judgment.
Yeah, it's fucking
It's
completely idiotic when you hear all this stuff about Kaladin. It's like, yeah, and that's someone decided I'm gonna try to rob him of his food. Yeah, okay, smart move, buddy.
I like how Kaladin basically comes up with a remedy for her herpes on her lip.
Yeah.
Ground cussweed root.
Yeah, it's not Rothfuss. Sanderson does a good job of bringing in the fact that Kaladin he's not just like a dumb soldier. Like he's an educated man that has a far better education than all the people that are around him, even the people who are ruling over him, like Gaz and this woman. Like he's more knowledgeable than them and more capable than them, but he's in a position where he's completely underutilized. Just a complete waste. To have a surgeon soldier in your army and you're using him as cannon fodder, it's like, what a fucking waste. What an idiotic position to put this guy in.
That's one of the things that actually I like that gets pointed out, why Kaladin is as mad as he is or has as much disdain towards Tvlakov as he has, is really just because, or not Tvlakov, to Gaz, is that he's literally doing these things to Kaladin just to be petty.
Yeah.
When he's grossly underutilized.
Wait, and he's known him
even more pissed off about it.
Gaz is immediately petty with him like 30 seconds after meeting him.
Yeah.
It's like you met him for 30 seconds. Why? Because he smiled at you? Wait, he wasn't even smiling at you. He's smiling because of her, but yeah. And so,
it's
smile at me. I'll fucking show you.
Well, it's pretty great because he labels him immediately like this guy's middle tier management and just pissed off because he's not top tier. He's middle tier. He's just above the new trainee, and he's never going to move up because he's not fucking capable, because he's petty like this. He's a fucking scumbag. So he's literally just in charge of the lowest rung of the ladder, and he'll always be stuck there. Which it's great that Kaladin immediately like recognizes this as he sees him, and then guy plays his part to the tune exactly.
I like when the lady goes to him, remove your top, slave, she commanded. Kaladin stared her right in her blue eyes and felt an almost irresistible urge to spit at her. No, he couldn't afford that, not when there was a chance. Pulled his arm out of his sack-like clothing, let it fall to his waist, exposing his chest. I like that his initial reaction is like, I will fucking spit in your fucking face.
He's an angry dude, man.
Yeah. Because there's not much more someone could do to me that would make me irate than to spit in my face. Like that's there's no coming back from that. Like, you spit in my face, we're fighting.
It's red.
No what?
You're seeing red immediately. Yeah, and there's nothing you can even. You shouldn't even be expected to control yourself in that circumstance.
No.
Like it's really funny. I remember I got together with like my cousins, my uncles. I guess they had like I was just hanging out with them, but they had like this get together. It was like a reunion of sorts at a bar, and they were all shitting on my cousin because he got in a fight. And I was like, well, I mean, what happened? And they're like, it doesn't matter. All these guys are here, and it's family. You don't get in a fight. I'm like, well, who's the fight with? Was it somebody in the family? He's like, no. And it's like, all right, well, what the hell, man? Why? And everybody's shitting on my cousin. I asked my cousin what happened. He's like, this dude spit on me. And I'm like, all right, you're all wrong. Why are you all saying this? Like, if I get spit on, I can't be held accountable at that point. Yeah. Like, what are you talking about? Which is really funny because it's like the table's completely turned. Everybody just thinks they're all right to shit on my cousin for having gotten in the fight. It's like, no, I disagree completely. I until like once I find out what you're talking about, it's like, no, you guys, you should have just been on his, having his back, and that's it, basically.
I got kicked out of a game one time because someone spit on me, and then I immediately tackled him and then tried to fight him, and it got broken up, and like they're pulling, I'm getting kicked out of the game, and I've completely lost my mind at that point, and I'm trying to run through everybody on the team to get back at this guy, and like so finally calm enough to like walk off the field, but then I'm just like, it's an indoor soccer place, and so they got all these tables and chairs and stuff set up, and I'm flipping over their tables and like Chuck Bob Knight in their fucking chairs, throwing them at all over the place. It's like, fuck this place. I was like, you gonna let this dude spit in my face and then I'm getting kicked out and you do nothing to him? I was like, no, fuck this place. I was destroying it. I was kicking over every table as I'm walking out of this place. I was surprised they didn't kick me out of the league because I completely lost it. No control, like at that point. There's no rational thoughts going through my mind. It was just destroy. That was, as soon as he spit in my face, the only thing in my mind was destroy everything.
I'm curious how it's possible for someone to get to that point that they think that's like a beginning altercation move, because it's not.
Well,
it's
people
like
would do things to me
face.
because like it was like, get this dude out of the game. Like he's there. We can't stop this.
Oh, so
stop
they're
him.
deliberately
like
instigating.
I'm scoring probably like 6 goals a game in this league. And so it was like, get this dude out of the game. And so people would hack the shit out of me. But that was the first time someone spit in my face. But that was why he did it. He did it because I was destroying them.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. I mean, in a way, what I'm saying, though, is if like you're deliberately trying to instigate somebody, you might as well punch me in the face. Like you're literally taking it to the highest level immediately. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing to yell at somebody, call people names, or push them, but once you like spit in somebody's face, it's like, yeah, literally, it's going to go to 10. I'm going to fucking 10.
Which was his goal. I mean, that was his goal, and it worked out exactly how it wanted. But yeah, so it's going to work. I could tell every team in the league, if you do that, it's going to work because I'm going to fight you. That's a guarantee. That's working every time, guaranteed. But yeah, but then, he's talking about like, despite 8 months as a slave, he was far better muscled than the others. Again, exposing like, all right, this dude that tried to steal from him is he's the dumbest slave in the bunch. But a large number of scars for one so young, the noblewoman said thoughtfully. You're a military man? Yes. The Windspren zipped up to the woman, expecting her face. Mercenary? Amaran's army, Kaladin said. A citizen second none. Once a citizen, Tvlakov put in quickly. He was. She silenced Tvlakov again with her rod, glaring at him. And then Kaladin starts telling her, that he was a former soldier, and he tries to blame it on that he was a murderer. Said, got drunk, made some mistakes, but I can use a spear as well as any man. Put me in your Bright Lord's army. Let me fight again. And it was a strange lie to make, but the woman would never let Kaladin fight if she thought he was a deserter. In this case, better to be known as an accidental murderer. And then Tvlakov completely blows up his spot. It's like, he's a deserter, Brightness. Don't listen to him. And
here's where you get Kaladin's spit in the face anger. Felt a blazing burst of anger consume his hope. He raised his hands towards Tvlakov. He'd strangle the rat. Like, so basically he just went into, again, irrational anger where he's basically going to attack this dude, and then he gets whipped.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets, probably took a spear to the back, I would guess. Didn't sound like a whip, but yeah, gets dropped. And from Tvlakov's perspective, like, Kaladin's thinking, this guy's just doing it to get petty revenge. But Tvlakov, like, leans in and is like, sorry, man, but, I can't trust you, and if you do something fucked up, they're going to blame me, and this is what I do for a living. I have to be able to say, like, I'm selling slaves, man. Yeah. This is the primo location for selling slaves. So you can't be fucking up my business. So I mean, there is rationale. Obviously, he's a fucking dirtbag. He's fucking selling slaves, but he's also living in this world, and there, who knows what his alternatives are. So he's not just a complete total bastard. He is a bastard, but part of it is just the circumstances that he finds himself in.
Yeah, I mean, he does go further, even explaining that, it's true that he's a murderer. He's also known to disobey and lead rebellions against his masters. I mean, but again, your point is well taken. He says, my conscience won't allow me to just sell him as a bonded soldier. But yeah, I think the biggest part of that is this is what he does. And if he gets a reputation for selling slaves that end up turning around and killing their masters or something, yeah, that's going to be a big problem.
Yeah, because I mean, I get the sense that he does feel bad, where he's like, I can't trust that you will behave. People in this army that will blame a merchant for not revealing all he knew. I am sorry. With that, the merchant scuttled away. So I don't think he's doing it to be just like a dick for a little petty revenge. I don't get that impression from Tvlakov, but still, it's a dirtbag.
I like how Kaladin though says, I shouldn't have ripped up that map.
Yeah.
It came back to bite me. I should have been nicer. It's all right. Well, whatever. Bitterness is repaid more often than kindness. But even still, it does seem like Tvlakov.
Even after that, after you rip away his ability to be, a soldier, then he's like, so be it. Cutting down trees, building bridges, fighting in the army, none of it mattered. He would just keep living. They'd taken his freedom, his family, his friends, and most dear of all, his dreams. They could do nothing more to him. It's like,
little do you know.
Yeah, you're wrong about that.
Well, so we did get here also something I brought up before, that after her inspection, the noblewoman took a writing board from her assistant, made a few quick notations on its paper. Tvlakov gave her a ledger detailing how much each slave had paid down on their slave debt. So I was wondering about that, because I'm like, wait, do they actually have like some freaking system where they're like, that's reliable? It still doesn't sound like it's really necessarily that reliable, because it's up to the slaver to actually, keep the numbers accurate.
Yeah.
But
and it's like, oh, and pure coincidence. Turns out that your pay equaled the expenses that I have to incur for bringing you here. It's weird. It just worked out exactly even Steven.
For every single one of these guys. How's that possible?
So his expenses is equal to their pay, which surprising coincidence. But yeah, it sounded like, I think I was right though. That is just like they're getting little emails on, and he just printed up the email on.
Oh, really?
On their current situation.
I don't. So they don't have like computers, but they have little Palm Pilots. Remember those? They have a little Palm Pilot.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. They don't. The only technology they have is email and iPods.
iPods, really?
Yeah.
Is that why Syl's always dancing? She's rocking out.
Yeah.
Just twerking all day long to listen to this.
She can turn herself into an iPod. That's where the iPods come in. But yeah, so Kaladin, and Kaladin's like, all right, fine. I'll just say, put all my wages to my debt this time. He's like, I'll fucking call them on their bluff. See what happens. He obviously doesn't do that, but he's not understanding the situation he's being put in too, because it's like it could take, anywhere from 10 to 50 years to pay off that debt. And it's like, yeah, they have no intention of you living 10 years, much less 50.
Much less a day.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to gas, it's like, all right, let's get this guy out of here immediately.
Like, I mean, they pretty much, it seems like when they send you to the bridge crew, they're like, this dude, no matter who you are, it's like chances are every single person that comes through there is not making it more than a month.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it.
Doesn't sound like it, that there's a lot of guys been doing bridge runs for years.
Well, and then it also sounds like Bridge 4 is the worst one to be on top of that.
Yeah.
So,
which, I mean, you wonder why, because what would be the difference? They're all doing the same thing. So
it's just
seems
but it
like
is the way
it's been superstition.
I was going to say, it is the way they describe it, though, right? I mean, they basically say, like, Bridge 4 is the worst one, or in so many words, not necessarily, but it does seem like they insinuate that, I don't know, they lose the most typically for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah, and then
Maybe it's Gaz. Maybe Gaz is a shit leader, because it does seem like he's a pretty shit leader.
I don't know if you guys will be able to hear that, but it is raining like a MFer right now.
Yeah.
Trying to keep it clean. Not going to cuss on this episode. I don't want to fucking do that.
I don't know
but
what
yeah,
is.
it is. There's a big old storm, and there's no windows open or anything. That's how big of a storm it is, if you can hear it.
It sounds like a muffin filler.
Yeah.
A midlife family member.
So
you want more examples?
No.
Okay.
No, that was bad. So yeah, then he sees he's in Sadeas's group, and he's like, is it irony or fate that landed him here? So it would be such a weird experience where you're like, all right, man, I just got to get to this place. This is where things are going to get better. And then you get there as a slave, and it's not only is it not what you expected just from the outside looking in, but even amongst what you're picturing as a slave, like, all right, well, I'll just, I guess I'll work in the latrines and just do what I got to do. And it's like, man, he puts old Kaladin through the fucking ringer in this one.
Yeah. I was gonna say too. We get the line, take them to the bridge cruise, tell Lamoral and Gaz that the tall one is to be given special treatment. And when I read that, I was like, oh, sweet, man. So he's like getting pillows and maybe some massages and smoothies and all that type of stuff, right?
Yeah. Make sure
that's not what happens.
Like he's getting a good rub down every night. And, he gets he gets a porterhouse for dinner at least 3 times a week.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it was very surprising that it wasn't exactly that. Instead, It was pretty awful, actually.
No, I'm getting the impression that this slave life is the pits. It is it's not as awesome as it would just seem on the surface.
Yeah, it's not as luxurious as it sounds, like, because you're cared for by your owners, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
You're just basically, taken care of. They feed you, and you get taken care of, massages, like I was saying, massages, pillows, the life of luxury. But apparently, apparently not here. It's just weird.
No, the image I had of slavery, it must be completely different, because this would suck. This does not sound good.
Yeah, this version of it sounds awful.
What?
But yeah, leave it to the authors, man.
Yeah, these authors, man, they're creative.
I do have some appreciation for like this camp follower type deal, like you were saying before. It's like a whole society, damn near, where there's whores, worker women, coopers, chandlers, wranglers, even children running along the streets. So it's like this little half city, half war camp that's just sprouts up because there's a bunch of people there, and there's goods and services, and people fornicating, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, they got all the high princes there, so I mean, it's got to be a lot of money flowing into this place. Plus, they're with what they're doing, taking out those beasts and for the gemstones, and so I mean, there's a lot of money being passed through these camps.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, whatever they're making that they need. I mean, it's not a secret. This is the same in our world. There's a lot of money involved with war.
Yeah.
They make stuff.
Yeah.
So some of those companies make pretty good coin.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a nice racket. And there's also Parchman, and he's, surprised. He's like, weren't they worried they would rise up? It's like, aren't we fighting? Aren't they fighting Parchment? And so it's like, perhaps it made sense. Alethi had fought against Alethi back in his armies at home. So why shouldn't there be Parchment on both sides of the conflict? So it keeps giving you the idea that there's obviously the Parchment and the Parshindi are considered to be basically the same, except for personality and type of people that they are. Whereas one group is fighting a war against them, and the other group's just like these non-speaking slaves that are just automatons.
Yeah, I was gonna say one's extraordinarily docile.
Yeah,
like they don't even have. It doesn't even seem like they exert
No, they
like
barely speak.
any free will.
Yeah.
Well, and am I wrong? The Parshendi not only are warriors, they grow their own armor out of their body. Is
Yeah.
that, yeah, I thought so. Yeah, I just
They're
read that in one of the
bigger,
recent
stronger. He
chapters.
gives a description of them, coming up in this chapter. But yeah, they're bigger, they're stronger, but they're same race of people. It's just there's something dramatically different. He keeps making a distinction, like pointing out like that they're the same race, but they're dramatically different in their personalities.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a huge difference. It's such a big difference that it's not just like doesn't even seem just culturally. It seems like yes, they're the same race and so they look alike, they have the same appearance, but the way they carry themselves is completely fucking different.
Yeah, I mean, like
utterly different.
Kaladin mentions like he doesn't even really. He's like they're not even really human. They're base.
He describes them as like animals.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. Like in terms of like being docile and just like worker bees, just to the point that they're literally just workers. It's interesting.
Yeah, and so he gets to this camp, and he sees these people. They wore, none of the men sitting around the barracks so much as glanced at them. They wore leather vests and simple trousers, some with dirty lace shirts, others bare-chested. The Grimsari lot weren't much better than the slaves, though they did look to be in slightly better physical condition. And so you get that these guys are beaten, where they're not even looking at people, not looking at anybody in the eye. They're just leather vests, simple trousers. They're look like, the slaves he's just been rolling with, except for in a little bit better condition, obviously because they've been carrying around a heavy ass fucking bridge. So they're going to be in better physical condition. Shit. Yeah. I mean, they are getting fed, so it's not like they're, you can't starve these people and then have them do what they're doing. You have to feed these people. So you would think you would feed them a lot more than they do. Like you would think you'd want these guys, even if you don't care whether they survive, you would think food would be something that you don't, scrimp on with these guys, considering what they have to do. But apparently they can push through.
Yeah, I mean, especially if their task is worthwhile, and it does sound like it is. They are actually necessary. At least have them be able to be, fed enough that they have some fuel within them to get through there. And obviously, the way Kaladin starts to lead his crew, it's like, man, this just makes sense. Don't you want every functional part of your army to be functioning at its highest level? Doesn't that make sense? But when you have these lowly, I mean, I kind of equate it to when you have these like lowly middle management types that just don't give a shit. They're just gonna beat up on people under them, and that's what ends up coming out of this. Is just it's not. I mean, they're cannon fodder basically.
Well, and the fact that they because they are cannon fodder, you can't even tell them like, look, here's why we're using you guys this way. If you guys come up with a better idea, let us know. We'd love to implement it. Like you can't even mention that because you're like starting them off with like, hey, by the way, here's what we're using you for. We want everybody targeting you because we can easily replace you. You're not very useful to us. We just want a bunch of you bringing bridges so we get some bridges laid down, but don't really care if they kill all of you. Now, if you can improve on that, go ahead. But yeah, it's like, no, you can't even fucking tell them why you're doing what you're doing. So like the innovation wouldn't even be, a thing, because you'd want the innovation coming from the people performing the job because they're the ones doing it. They know what works. Like Kaladin is able to, see what the problem is and how to resolve it. But
or at least
without knowing without being able to come to the upper management and tell him why he's doing what he's doing and that kind of shit, that because they have to lack communication between the different groups, it backfires on everybody.
I wonder because of how it gets delivered to us through Kaladin and Gaz's pettiness towards him. I'm curious if there are occurrences where somebody's actually explained what it is they're going to do rather than there's no explanation. Kaladin just yell at him, go there, and then he just has to look and basically it seems like, oh, so I guess your shoulder goes here, and I guess this is where, it's like it's all just trial and error from the jump.
Yeah.
Which makes sense also to what you said. I mean, you have him at the lowest possible, task, and no one wants this job. Nobody's volunteering for this fucking job. You're throwing them in as slaves. They don't have a choice. And, which is, well, we can go through it, but there's some really cool aspects to it in terms of what it shows us about Kaladin.
Well, and we meet Tim here, new recruits. Gaz, new recruits, Gaz, and one of the soldiers called. A man lounged in the shade a distance from the eating man. He turned, revealing a face that was so scarred his beard grew in patches. He was missing one eye. The other was brown and didn't bother with an eye patch. Said, pretty rude.
Sounds like a good look.
Yeah, you got a big hole in a socket. Like, that's kind of just throwing it in people's face. Like, it's like, all right, yeah. Like, I guess you're just like, fuck it. But still, man, that patch would be pretty fucking cool if you could wear that.
It's one thing to not try to, like, when someone has a weird look and you're not wanting to make eye contact. In this case, you're literally, like, you're trying to avoid one side of his face. I mean, it sounds like it's pretty hideous.
It's basically like Anthony Davis with aggressively not shaving his unibrow. It's basically the same thing where it's like, dude, you could just shave that unibrow and then, I wouldn't be focused on it every time I look at you.
Well, okay. Fair point, I guess. There are times where you see someone with just the absolutely most absurd hairstyle where for me, it would be like, dude, I can't talk to you. Like, I can't not look at this thing. What is this? Like, what are you doing here, man?
Yeah, Alfred Payton was one like that. Like he had like a big tube that he like just
coming off the front of his head. Man.
I was like, what the hell what did you do? I can't even it doesn't even. It looks like you purposely made it like so that it looks like you just got out of bed, except for the weirdest bedhead ever.
Yeah. You strangely formed this really odd shape that comes out of a very weird spot too. So it's just, how is this intentional? Yeah, it'd be very difficult. Yeah, I remember one of our friends mentioned this, and I totally agree. Like, if you're his coach, you might get to the point where it's like, dude, look, I don't want to have to tell you what to do, but I can't talk to you. Like, I can't take this seriously. Like, I'm looking at you, I'm having to tell you about like what the plan is here, and I have to like look at your shoes instead of this thing on your head. Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, Gaz is coming up to you. It'd be hard not to just look at the hole in his eye because it's not, something you see every day. So it'd take a while to get used to it, where you fucking become comfortable with it, where it's just that's what he looks like. Like, can I see right through? Let me see if I can see through, and put your hand behind his head. And Gaz would be the guy that, he comes up, with a big hole in his face, and then it's like, oh, my eye is right here. And it's like, yeah, man, sorry. It's hard not to stare at someone with a hole in their face. It's not something I see every day. I'm sorry that I'm a human being, and things that are super strange, I'm going to notice. No, it's totally cool when people present things like that to you and then get all offended. Yeah, really expect you not to, it's like, dude, you're fucking throwing this shit in my face. I'm sorry. This is not something I see every day. Some dude walking up with a giant hole in his fucking face. Probably more common on a battlefield than other environments, but still, it would be very noticeable. For some reason, what comes to mind is like when someone has an extraordinarily exotic name with really odd spelling and you mispronounce it, and they come back like, it's Charmaine. I'm like, okay. Like, there's a lot of letters here, right? Like, you know, it happens to you all day. It happens to you every day throughout the day if somebody sees your name. It's been happening to you since high school. This isn't new. I would get that every now and again when you're calling someone, their name's Denise or Dennis, and then you just kind of look at the name and you don't
you don't pay super close attention. So you're like, is Dennis there? It's Denise. Like, all right, settle down. Like, clearly the fact that you're that aggravated show this happens quite a bit. So it's a normal thing. I can settle down.
I'm just going to do it on purpose. Is D nice?
Yeah. D nice.
Is this D nice? Oh man, I remember, what was it? The late 80s rapper D nice? Is this D nice the late 80s rapper? Is it's not. Oh, you're
what was that? The substitute teacher. Have you ever seen that where the guy's like reading off the names as a substitute teacher?
It's so good.
He's like,
Block
D
A?
Nice. D
Block
nice
A is one of my favorites.
She's like, I'm Denise. He's like, oh, quit fucking playing around.
Yeah.
Fucking D nice.
It's what the hell what's his name? I can't remember the show.
It's the
sketch show. Key and Peele. Key and Peele. Yeah. Yeah. Block A is one of my favorite ones. You mean Blake?
Yeah, Block. That's such a legendary skit. I die every time I listen to it.
It is.
He just keeps getting more and more angry.
Yeah. Keeps leveling up the anger. It's fantastic.
So Kaladin goes up to Tim, and he's like, you know, in the army of I trained in the army of High Lord Amaram. I don't really care. Gaz got in, spitting something dark to the side. Kaladin hesitated. When Amaran, you keep mentioning that name, Gaznap, served under some unimportant landlord. Did you expect me to be impressed? Kaladin sighed. He'd met this kind of man before, a lesser sergeant with no hope of advancement. His only pleasure in life came from his authority over those even sorrier than himself. Well, so be it. You have a slave's mark, Gad said, snorting. I doubt you have ever held a spear. Either way, you'll have to condescend to join us now, lordship. And he gets stuck with this nickname for
Yeah, he calls him this for quite a while. A couple things. It's funny, when the first time I read it, now that you read it again, I remember I actually liked Gaz at first when he's like, yeah, I don't really care.
Yeah.
And then he's like, well, when Amaram, he's like, you keep mentioning this name. I don't give a shit about this guy. Yeah. I don't know you. I don't know who this person is. I'm not going to be impressed.
Yeah.
But then as it goes on, you're like, oh, this guy's just a dick. But I kind of liked his approach at first. But yeah, then he gives him the lordship nickname that sticks for a while, which he can't get back out of.
I like the two right after that. The Windspren comes up to him, starts squinting at him with one eye, imitating him, and then Kaladin sees it and smiles, and so then it's like, oh, so were you staring at my eye? It's like he gets all butthurt over that, and then from there, now those two things. The hey, I was a soldier in Amaram's army, and smiling at him. That was it for Gaz. Gaz at that point was like, now my goal is to get you murdered. Like, well, you escalated this little misunderstanding to quite a high level. And you go from like, he said something that annoyed me and he smiled at me. So now I'm going to get him killed.
He's got the power to do so. Yeah. So he's going to wield it.
So yeah, super douchebag move. Super douchebag move. But
this is, and as a matter of fact, this is, I mean, I guess he's effective in his role, but this is a really bad guy to have in this position. If your goal wasn't to get all these guys killed, but to actually have. When someone's like, using something that petty to be like, I'm going to purposely try to get you killed. My goal is to get you killed over that. It's like, well, literally all he did was like, I used to be a soldier, and he smiled at him. That was it. Think about how another way it could have gone. I used to be a soldier. Really? You want to lead the group? You know, like it could have been used in such a different way where from the get-go, there could have been like a bit of an allegiance rather than it's the opposite.
Or be like, hear you, but there's nothing I can do with that. I'm not in charge of armies. It's like, dude, I'm this is a bridge crew. You're just going to be carrying a bridge. I'm in charge of that. So even if you're the greatest soldier in the world, there's not much I can use with that. Just letting you know. So you don't keep telling me you're a soldier. Like, I mean, you don't even have to. You could just explain the situation, why it's unimportant to you. Because all Gaz is doing is like, dude, I just yell at you guys to carry the bridge. That's all I do. Like, you being a soldier is no benefit to my job, has no benefit to carrying this fucking bridge. So
it would have been really funny if he, like, super sarcastic guys, like, oh, wait, what? You said you're a soldier? Hold on. Everybody stop. Got let me find.
We got a soldier here.
I'll get you.
Everybody look. This guy, Kaladin, used to be a soldier. Big fucking deal. BFD.
Where's the guy with the shard blade? Let's just bring it over. Let's get him in shard plate. Yeah. Get you suited. You've been in shard plate before? What is it, Kaladin? Okay.
Has anybody seen Sadeas? We gotta get Sadeas over. Sadeas can give him his shard plate and his hammer, and then he can go fight for him. Because this dude, big fucking deal Kaladin, is a former soldier.
By the way, so what we just did right there, that's what I want in the show. That's how I want this scene to play out.
Yeah.
I want to be way over the top. And I want Kaladin at first to be like, oh, okay. Like, he gets kind of excited.
I am a big fucking deal. Finally getting the respect I deserve. Like, after all these years, now I got a fucking cool ass nickname, BFD.
I like it. That's how. Yeah, I would love to see it play out like that.
Kaladin, Gaz being super sarcastic and being a prick, and Kaladin fucking taking it earnestly.
Kind of works also for his character because he's like, all right, well, at least I'm getting this. Well, at least I'm getting that. He keeps getting cut down. So he's like, oh, well, nice. Let me get, okay. I'm gonna get some armor. What are we doing? You gotta get me some weapons, and then no, you're gonna carry that fucking bridge over there.
Yeah. It's like, big fucking deal. Kaladin just like all of a sudden like drops into the splits and starts doing dance moves. Like, yeah.
Well, what he does, he could do what he does in the when they're digging the latrine in that chasm. He could do that whole scene with the spear. He just starts doing his dance move thing. Like, everybody look, everyone watch. Although everyone was actually genuinely impressed. So
yeah.
That would be interesting.
It wouldn't work out well if like Gaz actually gave him a spear and then like he started doing that, and then there had been like, he is a big fucking deal. Like, I don't know why you were saying that sarcastically, because look at him.
Yeah, they'd have to like slice his Achilles.
Sarcasm.
Like, all right, now go carry this shit.
Sarcasm's gonna blow up in his face if he hands him a spear. But yeah, so then the horns go off at that point, and then then the amusement park aspect of this chapter starts to kick up. When now it's fun time, super fun ride. Been in that line for that long time. Now you're on the roller coaster, and it's super fun for him.
Yeah, well, actually, the last thing I would say we should put in there too, Gaz should say, you know what? I'm going to keep my eye on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, they head out. They head out to Bridge 4.
It's like, yeah, you, Lordship, Gaz said, pointing at Kaladin. I didn't say, I don't care what in damnation you said. You're in Bridge 4. He pointed at a group of departing bridgemen. The rest of you go wait over there. I'll divide you up later. Get moving, or I'll see you strung up by your heels. So, I mean, like the rest of the group, he doesn't even send on the mission. He's only targets Kaladin because he smiled at him. And it's like, puts him in this position where he's got no shoes, no shirt. Like all the other people's got sandals and a shirt and got padding for their shoulders. He's got none of that. Yeah. And then gets under this thing. It's like there's around 50 barracks with perhaps 20 to 30 men in each. Finds out that it's actually 35 and 35 to 40. And he's like, that would make nearly as many bridgemen in this army as there had been soldiers in Amaram's entire force. So that's how much more people are at the Shattered Plains. That's just bridgemen. He's got fucking massive amount of bridgemen. And obviously he's able to churn them out because they're churning and burning like these bridgemen at a very high rate. So they're obviously, slave trade is massive.
Well, so that's pretty crazy because a couple things that come into play there. that's a lot of guys, and they're constantly churning these guys out. And like you said, some of them are killing themselves. A lot of them are getting killed. You're paying for all these guys. Wouldn't it make some sense to keep them alive? I mean, to some degree, at least try to keep them alive. I mean, clearly they just have their method, and they're like, "This is what we do." And I guess that kind of plays to like how reality is in some sense.
And you know, it could be a situation where, you know, if you do it the other route, like you're losing, you know, you lose an extra 20 to 50 soldiers. You know, it could be the case that by having them target these, you know, bridge crew instead of the soldiers, maybe they would take out more soldiers if they were concentrating their arrows at them, or could be that they're losing more men total, but they're losing more easily replaceable men. Like,
we kind of get that too when they spin the bridge. Like, yeah, they leave them alone, but they concentrate all their focus on other ones, and people still get murked like crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could see where, you know, it might make sense, but like, it's not so much like that, you know, when you want to, you would think like you would want to be searching for a better way than that. Like, it's like, all right, this works, but what if we should still be experimenting and trying to figure out different methods and trying to figure out a better way. And it seems like, you know, Kaladin's the only one even attempting that.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, obviously, I don't know. Maybe we eventually find out. It doesn't seem like it's something that would be necessary to go into, but I'm curious how long, you know, they've been doing what they've been doing. Like, in particular, this method. You know what I mean? Like, I'm curious in terms of the whole, like, mobile bridge sort of scenario, how long they've been doing it in the way they've been doing it.
Yeah, it seems like at least a decent amount of time. It's somewhat new when they talk about it, but it seems like they've been doing it for at least a little bit. But it is, you know, fairly new at least. But yeah, so and then Gaz, you know, for himself, he's got a shield and a mace, even though he's not even going to get in the fighting. He's standing further back than the bridge crew, but he gets a shield. And then so they go and I like, you know, where's your bridge leader? He demanded.
Yeah.
Dead, one of the bridgemen said. Tossed himself down the honor chasm last night. Gaz cursed. Can't you keep a bridge leader for even a week? Storm it, line up. I'll run near you. Listen for my commands. We'll sort out another bridge leader after we see who survives. Gaz pointed at Kaladin. You're at the back, Lordling. The rest of you get moving. Storm you, I won't suffer another reprimand because you fools. Move. But I love that. Like, where's your bridge leader? Oh, he killed himself. Like, can't you guys do anything right? Like, what? What are you talking about? The dude killed himself, man. Like, oh, sorry. You know, my bad. I'll go ahead and take responsibility for that one, sir.
Yeah, he's a hell of a coach. This guy, he knows how to lead men, you know. Come on. Like, I'm not going to suffer another, like, get out there, don't embarrass me, basically is what he says here. Yeah. Like, you fucking asshole.
Go fuck yourself. Especially when you see what they have to do. Like, yeah, you suck, dude.
Yeah, be like, dude, I don't give a fuck about you, bro, at all. I don't care how this is reflected upon you. I'm going to die today, basically.
Yeah, and there wouldn't be much incentive not to just go and throttle the dude. Like, it'd be like, you know, I'm going to die, and maybe it's going to be a bad death, but at least I get to take that dude out. My life already sucks so bad that I would find a way to fucking murk him.
I think I would bet, I think you could bet pretty heavy that someone will try to take out that guy's eye, and they'll die trying, because fuck this guy.
Yeah.
He's the one making them go into battle and shitting on them no matter what comes out of it. Fuck this dude.
Just walk up to him and fucking one finger, bink. Jab him right in the eye. It's like, yeah.
Take his mace.
How does that feel, you jerk?
Yeah.
But yeah. So they start bringing this, and it's like Kaladin grunted as he struggled with the weight, hoisting the bridge up high. then stepped underneath. Men dashed in to fill the middle slots down the length of the structure, and slowly they all set the bridge down on their shoulders. At least there were rods on the bottom to use as handholds. Like, so they got this big ass bridge, and they're like, pick it up over their head. First, when you read it, you're like, holy shit, they're running with holding a bridge over their head. Like, how does that fucking work? Like, you'd be dead if you got to hold hold your arms up in the air for like 30 minutes, much less carrying something. But even still, like, they got to set it on their bridge, and they just got handholds.
Set it on their shoulders, yeah.
Brutal. Yeah, set it on their shoulders and just got some handholds. That's, man.
Well, and the fact that, like, so what ends up happening is just the motion itself keeps you going. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Right? So you're just moving along with, like, inertia and the force of the... If I kept feeling like if you ever carried a boat, like a canoe, it keeps feeling, in my mind, it kept feeling like that because it's hollow inside. And then he does a really good job with describing, like, the sounds and the visions of what you can see, and how he's basically, it makes so much sense that we're like, count your steps and just like slow your breath. Like, makes total sense. It would basically calm you down, and then it would have you focus on something that you can focus on and just keep moving. The idea of running in this circumstance is fucking nuts, man.
Yeah, you can't see. The ground is rugged, so it's not even easy ground to run on. You'd be stumbling all over the place. You can't see in front of you. Yeah. And
he's got like, no shoes on top of everything else.
No shoes. And like the other men had pads on their shoulders of their vest to cushion the weight and adjust their height to fit the supports. Kaladin hadn't been given a vest, so the wooden supports dug directly into his skin. Couldn't see a thing. There was an indentation for his head, but wood cut off the view to all sides. The men at the edges had better views. He suspected those spots were more coveted. So, I mean, you can't even, all you can do really is like look straight down at your feet. It's not like you can see where you're going to step next. So you're just moving with the motion.
I love the way he writes this is like you're put in Kaladin's position. And it is, again, like the wood smelled of oil and sweat. And it's like what he sees, everything you just described, like the no padding for his shoulder, so it's digging directly in. And he's like, that's kind of where he talks about, or eventually he talks about Gaz, where it's like, dude, I'm going to have permanent scars from this shit.
Yeah.
Like, not that he's super vain, but it's like, this motherfucker, dude, like, all out of like spite, put him directly into the situation with no preparation whatsoever. But
I like the other guy next to him like blames him, where like he's like he was already starting to bleed.
Yeah.
Poor fool, a voice said from the side. Kaladin glanced to the right, but the wooden handholds obstructed his view. Are you? Kaladin puffed. Are you talking to me? You shouldn't have insulted Gaz, the man said. His voice sounded hollow. He sometimes lets new men run in the outside row. Sometimes, but it's like insult him. I said I was in an army. And then I smiled at him. That's the extent of the insult. It's like, what are you talking about?
He came in there all braggadocious, like, oh yeah, this bridge thing. Oh man, I'm the best bridge runner ever.
And I wasn't even smiling at him. I was smiling at the Spren making fun of him, and he couldn't even see the Spren. So all he did was see me smile. And you guys are acting like I licked his hole in his eyeball or something.
Yeah, maybe he'd like that.
Yeah.
That's one of the things, though, that I kind of I wonder about the Spren, like as if it's doing. I mean, I'm still pretty early on in it, but it seems like in a way the Spren, it's obviously exceptional. Kaladin's obviously exceptional because the Spren thing doesn't happen with anybody else. It seems. We're not in everybody else's head. I get that, but we're not seeing this happening. And the Spren is even talking about it like, well, this is different. I'm not supposed to. So it almost feels like I wonder if the Spren if Syl is a source of getting Kaladin to do or to put him in situations that will then create who he is to become. I don't know. Could just be a coincidence. She got him to smile, and that apparently was almost a death sentence.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like she knows exactly what she's doing. Like she didn't even. She's get to the end, and she's like, oh, huh, I do have a name, and
she's
shit
like
that.
I even have a nickname. No, I'm not saying that she knows that she's doing it. It almost feels like there's almost a fatefulness. Well, it's a book, so it's hard for me
it definitely seems like there's something going on with them. I mean, that's clear. There's something weird about her and their relationship together. There's definitely something going on there. But and, man, it's a brutal one for Kaladin, because like it does not stop getting worse. And so like he's like, Kaladin tried to respond, but he's already gasping for breath. He thought himself in better shape than this, but he'd spent 8 months being fed slop, being beaten, and waiting out high storms in leaky cellars, muddy barns, or cages. He was hardly the same man anymore. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and out deeply, said a muffled voice. Focus on the steps. Count them. It helps. Kaladin followed the advice, and you get the landscape is terrible. I mean, it's rough terrain, so this is why they got to carry it. They can't use wagons or something because of how rough the terrain is. And then
his life of luxury, man, really set him back.
Yeah.
All that lounging didn't get him prepped up.
Yeah, he should have been working out. Like he's just wasting his time, just laying back, kicking back, eating slop.
Well, that's one of the great things about the bridge crew. It's a great way to stay in shape.
Yeah,
apparently,
definitely. It's a good workout program.
This dude. So think about this. Show comes out. They're selling Bridge 4, gear. It's a gym. How about that? There's a gym that is literally built around the Bridge 4 workout, and you have a bunch of dudes all carrying it.
They're all carrying bridges, and it's heavy as shit.
Squats.
And they're, someone's like yelling at them, start whipping them if they stop.
Yeah.
It's only once they're like, oh, this would be awesome, and then they start carrying it, and then someone starts whipping them, like fucking with an actual whip and hitting them in the back, and then they realize. Then they get to the end and someone starts shooting arrows at them. And they're like, hold on. It's like, you wanted the Bridge 4 experience.
At first, it's just for masochists. Then it's like, wait, are you murdering people?
Yeah,
is that what this is?
Yeah.
I'm paying for this?
It's like, we're giving you a legit Bridge 4 experience. I don't know what you're complaining about.
It's a hell of a workout, and it's a psychological, just a whole revampment for you.
Yeah.
It's like it's a makeover is what it is. It's a psychological makeover. We're going to turn you into
you're not going to be the same after this workout. Trust me. It's like half the people died. Like, yeah, it's a rough workout. But the ones who survive are they're definitely different after that.
Exactly. If half the people didn't die, it wouldn't mean as much now, would it?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So his feet are getting tore up, ragged and battered. Couldn't they have given him shoes? He set his jaw against the agony and kept on going. Just another job. He would continue and he would survive. Before too long, blood ran down Kaladin's shoulders. His breathing was torturous, his side aching painfully. He could hear others gasping, the sounds carrying through the confined spaces beneath the bridge. So he wasn't the only one. Hopefully, they would arrive at their destination quickly, and he hoped in vain. The next hour was torture. It was worse than any beating he'd suffered as a slave, worse than any wound on the battlefield. There seemed to be no end to the march. And this is just the beginning. This is just like the first stage of it. Granted, at the beginning, they're going over permanent bridges, so they're crossing chasms without having to set it down and pick it back up. They're just going over permanent bridges, and then once they get a little further, then they got to start dropping the bridge, letting people cross, pick it back up, go back over, that kind of shit. But still, like, I mean, it seems like at least the first quarter of the trip, this is what he's describing as brutal, and he's not even halfway yet.
Yeah, I mean, fuck. Yeah, it gets really bad. I mean, just right here, he talks about kept running, couldn't feel his feet any longer, kept running. He knew somehow that if he stopped, he'd be beaten. He felt as if his shoulders had been rubbed to the bone. Tried counting steps, but was too exhausted even for that. But he just didn't stop running. So he just keeps going and going. But yeah, one of the things that I do like about this so much and why the gym will be successful is he fucking powers through it, man. And that's one of the things that if you ever gone through conditioning for like sports or whatnot, you do reach that point where you're like, no fucking way. I can't keep fucking going. But you can. There's a reserve. There's always this reserve. And well, until you do exhaust it and then you're dead.
Yeah.
But Kaladin's got that reserve going. Clearly.
I typically do not find my reserve anymore. Like I get to the point where like I'm a little bit gassed and I'm like, all right, that's good. I'm good with that.
No, I literally have to go to like a conditioning class to do that, to push myself that hard. If I'm by myself, I'm not. I go for runs and whatnot, and I'll just keep going even though it hurts. But yeah, like working out on my own,
pain doesn't bother me. Like my feet hurting or that kind of stuff, I can push through that and just deal with like physical pain. It's the stamina. Like, nope. Once my stamina feels like it's out and I'm breathing heavy and that kind of shit, and then I'm like, all right, I'm done.
Well, you're never going to build stamina then, Dan.
Well, I will only, it would be very slowly. And I'm not in a lot of foot chases these days. So it's not like a high priority for me.
You better not.
Yeah.
If you get one, you might be in big trouble here, man.
I feel like, if shit changes and I got to get in shape, I'll regret it for like the first couple months if I survive. But as of right now, not finding there's a lot of scenarios where I need to be able to like sprint for like 5 straight minutes or something.
What's really funny about like even envisioning that, it's like, dude, if that was to happen, you got big problems.
Yeah.
It's not just that you don't have the stamina.
Yeah.
Like a lot of things have gone wrong around us if suddenly this is necessary.
Yeah, if stamina is like a huge priority in my life, I feel like that the world is not a place I'm super keen on, existing in anymore at that point.
Well, I don't envision a lot of
scenarios where I gotta be in super super good shape.
Well, this is you becoming the leader of Bridge 4, man.
Yeah,
right. That's what the gym's for.
Well, Kaladin was able to get back in shape, so if he can do it, I can do it.
It's great, man. Stay in shape.
But yeah, and then so Gaz calls a halt, and then he's like, lift. Gaz bellowed, the men lifted, Kaladin's arms straining at the motion after so much time holding the bridge in one place. Drop. They stepped aside, and the bridgemen underneath taking handholds at the side. It was awkward and difficult, but these men had practice apparently. They kept the bridge from toppling as they set it to the ground. Push. Kaladin stumbled back in confusion as the men pushed at their handholds on the side or the back of the bridge. They were at the edge of the chasm, lacking a permanent bridge. To the side, the other bridge crews were pushing their own bridges forward. So they set these bridges down, put it over the chasm so that the soldiers can cross. And
I think if I'm in Kaladin's position, the drop, lift, drop, push, it just seems natural. I know he's exhausted, but you'd think he would just yell, make up your mind.
Yeah.
Which one are we doing here, man?
And then, he falls back, too exhausted to watch, claps to the stones. He listens as the soldiers tromping across the bridge. He rolled his head to the side. The other bridgemen had laid down as well. So, everybody is in the same, even, as they're doing this, they're still not in good shape, to the point where they're not in the kind of shape where this isn't exhausting.
Yeah, no, this is ridiculous. Plus, they're not eating. We find that out. It's not like they're feeding them well.
No.
They're malnourished. They're getting their shit kicked in. They're getting the shit kicked out of them every time they go. Plus, a lot of these guys are probably fairly new.
Yeah.
There's also that. These guys aren't lasting.
Yeah.
Right? So, this is a brutal job, man. You don't want to be in this job for long, which apparently, you're not, but.
Yeah, and then he sees, as the soldiers go across, he sees Sadeas go rolling across in his red
there's
shard
kind of like
blade.
the hierarchy of soldiers kind of pass through, right?
Yeah, and he's like, is that the king? And the leathery bridgeman laughed tiredly. We could only wish. Kaladin turned towards him, frowning. If that were the king, the bridgeman said, then that would mean we were in Bright Lord Dalinar's army. The name was vaguely familiar to Kaladin. He's a high prince, right? The king's uncle? Aye, the best of men, the most honorable shard bearer in the king's army. They say he's never broken his word. Like this is only the second time we're hearing him, I think, and there's a mention of him in one of Shallan's chapters or something like that. But from what the only time we've seen him thus far, we just see him passed out drunk. And
Dalinar?
when the kings get murdered, he's at that that celebration of the treaty, passed out drunk, where no one can get him up and get him even to go to bed. And so now we're hearing about him like, the best of men, the most honorable shard bearer. And so like, I mean, if you remember him, you're probably thinking like, yeah, sure thing. Just like Amaram's a fucking super dope dude. And that's what Kaladin's thinking as well. Like, much the same had been said about Amaram. You should wish to be in High Prince Dalinor's force, lad, the older man said. He doesn't use bridge crews, not like these at least. Which he's accurate. I mean, Dalinar's would be the much better position to be in than to be in Sadeas's crew.
Yeah, there are a couple things that I also thought were pretty funny. The first, or one of these times that they get a small break, Gaz walks around the various crews, shaking his head, shield on his back as he muttered about their worthlessness.
Yeah, like dude, again, go fuck yourself, man.
Great coach, awesome coach.
Just fucking really lazy bums. You guys suck. Can't wait until arrows start raining down on your head.
Fucking scumbag, man.
I'm gonna murder you, man.
But and then we do.
I already know that the end of this road is arrows raining down on me. It might be preferable to like take that mace and slam it into your fucking face.
Well, and that's part of why this is so great, how Sanderson plays it out, because we just keep going. It's like gets worse and worse and worse, and then they're all going into a fucking buzzsaw. But before we get there, I wanted to mention that part that I mentioned a moment ago, that he's basically like just staring up at the sky, exhausted. And then it occurs to him, his training warns him that he might cramp up. So he gets up, stands up, starts like rubbing his muscles and everything just to try to keep himself loose. And the one guy notices, and he's like, yeah, Gaz is wondering why you aren't lying down. That's why he's like looking at him like with death eyes, because he wants them all to look like they're beaten to shit. This guy's he is a son of a bitch.
Yeah, he's got a lot of disdain for Kaladin for very little cause, very very little cause, and then so he yells at him to get back up and time to move, and Kaladin's like, "I'll be glad to get back." He muttered back. The leathery bridgeman said, "We aren't turning around." His friend chuckled, or Kaladin was like, "We aren't turning around." His friend chuckled wryly. "Lad, we aren't nearly there yet. Be glad we aren't. Arriving is the worst part." And then this is the part where it's like, you had this big buildup and you're like, man, that sounded awful. And then when you hear like, dude, we just started. We're at the beginning of this. Like there's a long way to go. And the end is the worst. And you're like, holy shit. Did you already hear how tired he is? And so he's already talking about like, how am I going to get back? And they're like, well, we're not even halfway there.
I mean, tired to the point of like, can he physically do this?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And there's a part I really liked that I was talking about that a moment ago, which I thought it was great, where it's like his hatred for Gaz is what fuels him to be like, I'm not going to fail just so this motherfucker doesn't see me fail. Or basically it's something along those lines. I don't remember exactly how it's worded, but something. So he talks about Gaz. His whole thing about Gaz not giving him sandals or a vest. Hardly able to walk. And he describes Gaz as a what Gaz had done to him was the mark of a petty bully, which we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
He risked the mission by losing a carrier, all because of a hasty grudge. And it was that hatred, his hatred for Gaz, is what would sustain him through the ordeal itself. At least that's what he's telling himself.
Yeah, because Kaladin's not 100% accurate, because their job is to be cannon fodder. They're supposed to be cannon fodder. So he's not Gaz is not screwing up. He's the making mission. Assumptions. He's just but. Yeah, he's still a dick. And, I mean, if you're not a terrible person, when you know you're sending men to die, and that's your job is to send these men to die, you'd think you'd have some compassion and want to make it as less miserable, at least.
Yeah, you don't walk around saying you're worthless. Like,
Yeah.
dude, like they're gonna be
But
dead.
you know, and
in a
then
few
you know,
minutes.
part of it though is probably that psychology behind it. If your job is to send these people to their death and shit, and it would have to be psychologically torture. Like, I mean, this is what I do for a living. Like, so it might, you know, be kind of a psychological defense to start thinking of them as garbage people, and these are they're worthless, they're scum.
It
they
makes
deserve
what you
this.
do less. Yeah, it makes what you do less evil, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
So it could be like a little coping mechanism.
I do really like, well, Kaladin's basic coping mechanism of this idea of like whatever it takes to not be beaten because of this person, right? Just like the wild things we do to not be beaten by someone we have disdain for.
Yeah.
So whatever it takes. I mean, whatever your focal point has to be for that reason to not necessarily succeed. Well, success here is like to not die.
Yeah.
Not give in to exhaustion.
Yeah, so I like it, you know, he's like, you know, and so the nightmare began its second phase. And so they're repeating this process where they're carrying the bridge, pick it up, you know, have to lift it up, set it down, push it across the chasm. The army crosses, then they got to pick it up again. And not only that, they got to cross, pick it up again and carry it. Then they have to run and jog to get in front of the army to beat them to the next chasm. Yeah,
that's nuts.
They got to wait for everybody to go by, and they're still exhausted. Got to pick it up, and it's not like they got to walk. They got to fucking jog to get back in front. You know, after they're already exhausted, so they're not even they get no fucking break whatsoever. And so it's you know, and if they don't, you know, if they did get behind, you know, they talk about they get whipped when they get back to camp. So, well, yeah, it's fucking awful. It's just horrendous job. But then, you know, and Gaz is, you know, cursing at them, kicking them when they slowed, and he never does any real work. And so, yeah, Kaladin starts despising the guy. But when Kaladin would call them to rise, Kaladin, you know, or Gaz would call them to rise, Kaladin somehow struggled to his feet. It was either that or let Gaz win. Why were they going through all of this? What was the point? He was growing delirious, feet running. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Stop. He stopped. Lift. He raised his hands. Drop. He stepped back, then lowered the bridge. Push. He pushed the bridge. Die. That last command was his own, added each time. Fucking sounds brutal. And but this is written the way that is written and the way it's described on the audiobook. It paints the picture of just, you can see the montage of just this constant just pick up, set down, drop, push, pick up, drop, and running in front of the army. You can just see the process. You can see it in your mind. So it's described in a really good way.
Well, and then the gradual changes within Kaladin. Like you said, the last command was his own, added each time. Then he just falls. He closes his eyes, no longer able to care about cramps. He entered a trance, a kind of half sleep for what seemed like one heartbeat. I mean, he's just basically, I don't even know what you call it. I mean, he's just basically like in a trance, you know, he's basically just like barely there. He's just a moving part, basically, and just trying to continue to go through it.
And then,
you can imagine it, you know?
Yeah, he gets the rise and he stands, he crosses, pull, they pull the bridge, and then they yell switch. Kaladin stood up dumbly. He didn't understand that command. This is the first time he's hearing it. And so all the people in the front move to the back and all the people in the back move to the front. So they all switch places. And I like the fact that, you know, at first Kaladin, he sees, you know, newcomers get to go first at this part, your lordship. The sergeant smiled wickedly. Kaladin asked the point of it. He didn't care. He liked the front, though. Jogging was easier now that he could see ahead of him. So he's like, this is much better, you know.
That's, there's another moment for you where Gaz shows he's a real scumbag.
Yeah.
The fact that he smiles wickedly. He takes pleasure.
Yeah, he knows what he's sending them to do. He knows what's going to happen to him.
Yeah.
Hey, no sympathy. Like, yeah. And you got to think it's like got to be like a coping mechanism, because like unless you're just like a pure total sociopath, which he doesn't seem like that. Like when you're in his head for a brief bit in the parts that you're at, and when he's talking to Kaladin, it doesn't seem like a sociopath. It just seems like he's in a terrible spot. But I think it's more of a coping mechanism where if you didn't have him in this environment, he wouldn't be this big of a piece of shit. But you put him in this environment and force him into when he's doing this job, he's probably, it's training himself to look at these people as less than human. That's the only way he could probably do this job.
Fair enough, but still, one would like to think
he's
that you're not
still
that
doing
corruptible.
it. Yeah, he's still doing it, but I'm just saying,
it is worth,
it's not an
noting,
enviable position, regardless.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to be him and be in charge of doing this to people. It would. I mean, you think of what it would do to you. That's a large theme of the book. It's not just what would going through the torments do to you. What would be, in charge, ordering the people to do these things? What would that do to you? And that kind of, you get all these different dynamics of what would the power do to you? What would the being the slave do to you? What would be, the middle management do to you? So you get these examinations of, what these different positions would do to you.
Instead of this just being everybody's evil in all these places, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not like the way. It's kind of like the way people look at like fucking Nazis or something. It's like, oh, they were just all bad. It's like it's a bunch of human beings that were in this power structure.
Yeah, it's not like they, those are a different breed of humans. Like they're all the same. I mean, you see it in our world. There's, places like, North Korea where it's just, it's absolute hell. So humans do horrible things to each other. And, it's not evil. There is evil, but it's not just evil that is doing it. It is a lot of it is people will make excuses for what they do, and they will come up with justifications for why they do what they do. They don't just go around thinking like, I'm evil, so I'm going to do evil shit.
People don't look at themselves as evil, even in the role they play. There's small circumstances, small moves where they get corrupted, but they justify that corruption. Yeah, and they don't even see it as corruption. Right?
Yeah, it's still wrong. I mean, it's not like, it's not a justification. It's just an explanation for how does someone do these type of things? Because otherwise, if you don't examine like how would someone be capable of this, then it becomes, it's a fairy tale good versus evil, where the evil is just like their purpose and their point is to be bad, and like that's it's not many people that are like that.
Yeah, that's not a rational existence, especially on a large level like the examples we're talking about.
Yeah,
those things actually happened in reality. So if you want to look at them from a level that you can actually learn from, it's important to look at it from this actually happened. It can be a natural course of events that's actually possible. So it's important to actually view it from that viewpoint rather than they're a character. They're what is it, Zoran or what the I can't even think of it. I'm just trying to think of it like the. I don't know, Lord of the Rings, like the eye, the evil.
Sauron.
Whatever, yeah. It's just that, and there's basically embodiment is just an image in itself. And it's like, well, that thing's evil, and everybody can point at it.
Which those stories are fine. I mean, those stories are good. I like stories like that. But,
I'm saying in our world.
It's not realistic. I mean, it's exactly. It's definitely escapism. Whereas this has a lot of, it's obviously there's a lot of fantastical, it's a fantasy story, so there's fantastical elements to it, but there's also, there's an examination of human nature that's part of what I like about this book, is that examination of human nature. Because even like the guys that are pieces of shit and garbage people that do terrible things, like they have their reasons, they have their justifications. There's not many people that you're going to come across that view themselves as doing something wrong and see themselves as doing evil. They have justifications for why they do what they do.
Yeah, that's most of the population, over 92 or probably over 99%.
Yeah, and so they get up there, and then you get the as why had they given such a wonderful position to a newcomer? And then he hears Talon Alat Elin, bearer of all agonies, said the man to his right, voice horrified. It's going to be a bad one. They're already lined up. It's going to be a bad one. And then he looks up, and also too, you get that Talon Alat Elin, that is Ton, who they sacrificed. And so when they call bearer of all agonies, that's why, because he's been the bearer of agonies for thousands of years at this point.
Yeah, it sounded like a prayer. It sounded like an emotional plea, sudden emotional plea.
And you would think it would lead to you would think like slaves would look up to this guy too, as they're put through the meat grinder. And they, you would think like their religion is they're one of their deity type figures, not their God, but like a deity type figure that has just been dealing with suffering for them, to keep them from being put through a desolation. Where I think it would be something that they would look to as like gives them comfort. Like, okay, if he can do it, I can do it. He's been doing this for thousands of years, being tortured. So if he can do it, I can do it. So I think that's, partial, a religion like that would have some dramatic effects on what, how people would get through some stuff. Because this is a bad one. Yeah, because he's correct. It is a bad one. And so on the other side of the rift stood a rank of men with marbled crimson and black skin. They were wearing a strange rusty orange armor that covered their forearms, chests, heads, and legs. It took his numb mind a moment to understand the Parshindi. They weren't like common Parshmen workers. They were far more muscular, far more solid. They had the bulky build of soldiers, and each one carried a weapon strapped to his back. Some wore dark red and black beards tied with bits of rock, while others were clean-shaven. And then he sees, they hold their short bows, arrows nocked, not long bows intended to launch arrows high and far. Short and recurved bows to fire straight and quick and strong. An excellent bow to use for killing a group of bridgemen before they could lay the bridge. Arriving is the worst part. Now, finally, the real nightmare began.
It's fucking intense, man.
Yeah.
It's so intense. It's
of course, cool Gaz hangs back, bellowing at them as they're going. Get up there, you pussies.
Yeah, I see him as like heckling. He's like heckling them. It's like you. Yeah. Well, I was going to say,
I got shot with an arrow. It hurts.
I like
rub some dirt on it. Get up.
I like a number of the images, like picturing the marbled crimson and black skin, and then coming through it another time. Now realizing the strange rusty orange armor that covers the forearms, chest, heads, and legs. Once I just recently read that it's like grown out of them. You totally see that differently now, or I totally see that differently now than I did then, which is really interesting, an interesting choice on Sanderson's part. I like it a lot. I'm curious how that evolves, if they're like, they evolve into, soldiers or warriors, or if it's something that, they get like injected with in their bodies or something. I don't know. They're all like Wolverine or something.
Yeah, it'll eventually come up. Though he gives explanations for what the fuck's going on, and the the difference between the Parshindi and Parshmen. So he goes further into those kind of things. But yeah, it's slow but surely you find out, get more and more pieces on those things. But I like also that his instinct was like, get out of the way, but it's just that because there's a bunch of dudes, there's 30 guys behind him pushing him forward. He's just stuck in front. Yeah. And so he's just like
got no choice, caught
where it's like he can't even get out of the way, even if he wanted to. If he let go and drops, they're just gonna stomp, trample him to death. So he's screwed.
It reminded me of the battle with the kid that was being told run, and don't use your shield, where he had to keep fighting that he wanted to use his shield. It was like, no, get ahead of the the arrows, because those were the ones they were shooting up.
Yeah.
So it was like, it reminded me of that in a sense where it's like your body says what you have an instinct that you're now having to fight. And in his circumstance, fucking choice. His choice is death or continue. But I love also.
The difference though is like they were sprinting ahead so that they wouldn't get arrows rained down on them. These guys are sprinting straight into the arrows.
Yeah, it's nuts.
I
love so it gets kicked up. The real nightmare begins, and then we get Gaz is heckling them, and then Kaladin's exhaustion and pain fled. He was shocked alert, which is pretty dope, man. Like, so in that moment, he goes into that next level. He hits that next gear.
And just boosts of adrenaline,
shock and panic. Yeah, because he's looking death right in the face.
Yeah, and so they all start screaming, ran toward death. The archers released. The first wave killed Kaladin's leathery faced friend, dropping him with three separate arrows.
So it was George Kaladin's.
Yeah. Yeah. The man to Kaladin's left fell as well. Kaladin hadn't even seen his face. That man cried out as he dropped, not dead immediately, but the bridge crew trampled him. The bridge got noticeably heavier as men died. And then, to the side, Kaladin barely noticed another of the bridge crews floundering. The Parshendi seemed to focus on their fire on certain crews. That one got a full wave of arrows from dozens of archers, and the first 3 rows of the bridgemen dropped and tripped those behind them. The bridge lurched, skipping on the ground and making a sickening crunch as the mass of bodies fell over one another. So you got like these guys, the first row gets taken out, everybody else runs over them, they fall, the big bridge that they're carrying plops down on them, like bounces, smashes, skids over top of them. They're all just getting trampled and crushed under each other. It's just like, and with arrows also, raining down on them. Like, fuck.
Yeah, that image on a well done television show, man, that's just like ratcheting it up. Because
especially because you could show like Kaladin running, and then you're looking at it like from like maybe over his shoulder, and he looks to the right, and he just sees arrows rain down, take out the crew, and then the bridge just smash them all.
Well, and what's great about that also is think about it in visual context. You're not in his head, so you're sort of seeing what's going on. You're like, well, why doesn't he just do? Oh, he can't. He's got very few options. That's what goes wrong if you fall over, if you trip. Basically that's what can happen. Yeah, man. It's brutal, man. It's great though. It's great. I mean, the way it's written is so great. It just keeps ratcheting up and up and up, and like the horror and the shock and man.
Yeah, it takes an arrow to the cheek, and then he screamed in horror and shock and pain and sheer bewilderment. Never before had he felt so powerless and battled. He charged enemy fortification. He'd run beneath waves of arrows, but he'd always felt a measure of control. He'd had his spear. He'd had his shield. He could fight back. Not this time. The bridge crews were like hogs running to the slaughter. Wave of arrows came from the Alethi side as well, falling and striking the Parshendi. So then you have as they're getting closer, then the rest of the army starts coming up and, giving them a little bit of cover, where they start firing arrows. They're preparing to cross the bridge, so they obviously just can't leave that Parshendi crew to just be, still set up there. So they let them target these crews, and then they come behind them and start raining their own arrows down on their archers. And that's the whole purpose of it is you get the Parshendi shooting arrows at the bridge crews. Your arrow crews can run up behind, start taking them out, and then by the time the bridge is set down, you've already taken out their archers without their archers firing on your troops that are going to be crossing that bridge. So you can just march straight across that bridge without being under a hail of arrows.
Yeah, buying yourself time. Yeah, it's all about cover.
Which to the Parshmen, the Parshendi should have smartened up and realized what the fuck the strategy was. Like, we're killing. Like, you would think after a couple of Sadeas' runs where they're like, okay, yeah, let's say we took out 5 bridges, they got across, and then they fucking just flowed right over and ran us over. Clearly, killing these bridges is not doing us any good.
Yeah,
like, we should change strategy.
Yeah, it seems like they throw everything at those first waves, which is the bridge crew, and then they come over and they either beat them or they retreat. So it's like they didn't win anyway. Especially if the whole thing's about the whatever the fuck
the gem hearts.
The gem hearts. Yeah, if that's the whole point, then you got to be holding them off and hold that ground. But yeah,
I mean, you just think it would only take like
tactics.
1, 2, 3 times. Like you should be 3 max. Like, okay, this strategy has not worked once. We have not been able to take out enough bridges to make a difference. They're all still able to easily get across. It's not like Sadeas' army is having trouble getting across the chasms. They don't have enough bridges. So if you're not taking out those bridges, it's like, what the fuck are you guys doing, man? Fucking smarten up.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I don't get the impression that one army dramatically outnumbers the other. Am I wrong about that? Is there like a tremendous amount more of the Alethi than the Parshendi?
It's the battles that you've seen. It's not like the Parshendi are coming in, under.
Well, I mean,
getting completely overwhelmed.
Well, yeah, I mean, like this
superior
one,
forces. It seems like keep in mind that Sadeas is one of the high princes.
It's
It's not like they're sending in their the full army. They're just sending one group, and the Parshendi are sending in some of their forces. But yeah, it seems like they're pretty evenly matched.
Yeah, that's my real reason for pointing it out. Is that's not what's pointed out here. And it's not necessarily, it doesn't really get a focus on any one thing being right or wrong. But like you said, it does seem like the tactic is flawed. So why keep doing it, But
yeah, I mean, it's not working. It's not not holding them back at all. But yeah, they stick with it. And then
maybe that's their thing. It's like, no matter what, like, this is our thing. This is what we do.
Yeah.
We do ABC and we stick with ABC. Well, what about the fact that maybe ACD would work better? No. ABC, bro. This is what we do.
B comes before C. Yeah. No, I get that. In that scenario, yeah, the letters, yeah. But what if we did C first? No. Because we already labeled that B. And so B has to come before C. Well, can we fucking change the labels? I got it.
Yeah,
I get it. Like, no, you don't understand the alphabet. A, then B, then C.
It's such like slaves to like the program. It's like, so we can't revise this whatsoever.
It's all because some guy just like, here's the different zones of attack, and then he wrote A, B, C next to him, and they're like, well, now we're stuck.
Well, I know. I mean, this does seem to happen to a certain degree in military. Like, I remember World War I, listening and sort of studying that to a degree, and that was a big part of the big problem in the beginning. Is they had not adapted for the change and mortar fire and all this other stuff, but then they did.
They weren't even like in World War I, like a lot of them, they weren't even sending in the beginning. They weren't sending their armies out with metal helmets.
No, they're
just
sending
them with like baseball caps.
Well, yeah, they were sending them like they were in like the Napoleonic Wars.
Yeah.
So you're basically the Crimean War. So you're basically like, no real body armor in itself. You're still dressed like it's, you're just showing your pride in your country, and then you're just going in formations on like horseback. You're getting rained down with mortar fire and machine guns turrets. So it's like, dude, you're literally just massacring yourselves. So
sending just like wave after wave of people into like fortified positions where they got artillery, and they're just like sitting there mowing down fucking people, and they're just breaking waves. It's like waves crashing across, on the rocks. It was just like, what the fuck are you guys thinking? You just
it's so nuts.
Wasting people's lives.
Yeah, it's so insane when you like start to see the numbers of like literally just go boom, boom, just keep going. It's like,
especially
dude,
when you compare like the numbers of deaths and like Napoleon's wars compared to World War I or like the Revolutionary War versus World War One. I mean, the numbers go through the roof. The numbers were pretty much like deaths in wars are pretty much the same. Like per battles, like in a battle, the amount of deaths were about the same.
I want to say it was
like the Revolutionary War, all the way through history. Like
I want to say
for hundreds and thousands of years.
They peaked at like the tens of thousands, if I remember correctly. And then World War One, it goes into millions and 10 millions.
It ramped up a bit. It ramped up a bit once cannons came into play and you had artillery. But then, like once you get to World War One, it just explodes. The amount of deaths that were happening in wars like just went through the fucking roof.
Yeah, it's the technology and meeting. Well, it's the advance of technology meeting the antiquated tactics.
Yeah.
And then realizing, oh shit, this is a bloodbath, and then having to adjust it. We saw that in the Civil War too, because they had more accurate guns, and that in itself was like, we can't fight this like we were Revolutionary War, so it's just a bloodbath.
Yeah.
So they have to adjust. But yeah, that's kind of the interesting thing, and that's what took me there, is this thing with the Parshendi. It could just be that much, where it's and I kind of got that element when I started to read or study a little bit about World War One, where it's like, it's just the old heads. It's the old way of doing things. Apply this. We've studied war. We've studied war for all this time, and up to this point, this is how you do it. So apply it. And then you don't realize until bloodbath, and then it's like, all right, maybe we do try C first.
Yeah, it's like it's been going at this for 6 years, so
no,
they should have enough time to adjust tactics. But yeah, so they keep doing that, and then all around him, bridgemen were screaming in pain, arrows cutting them from underneath their bridges. There was a crashing sound as another bridge dropped, its bridgemen slaughtered. Behind, Gaz called out, "Lifting down, you fools!" The bridge crew lurched to a stop at the Parshendi as the Parshendi launched another volley. Men behind Kaladin screamed. The Parshendi firing was interrupted by a return volley from the Alethi army. Though he was shocked senseless, Kaladin's reflexes knew what to do. Drop the bridge, get into position to push. And then, the people in the back are exposed. So they start getting fucking hit with arrows. And, they start pushing it across. And Kaladin almost falls over the cliff. He's like, the height was beautiful. He'd always loved climbing high rock formations with Tien. And then Kaladin tried to move, tried to crawl away from the bridge, but he just collapsed where he was, his body refusing to obey. Couldn't even roll over onto his stomach. I should go, he thought in exhaustion. See if that leathery-faced man is still alive. Bind his wounds, save. But he couldn't. He couldn't move, couldn't think. To his shame, he just let himself close his eyes and gave himself over to unconsciousness. To his shame. It's like, dude, you have nothing to be ashamed about.
Well, like, the fact that
the only people who should be ashamed are people who put you in that position, because this is ridiculous.
The fact that that his last thoughts are like, I should go try to help this guy and bind his wounds, not even knowing if he's hurt, show the signs of a phenomenal leader. That's what occurs to him as he passes out.
Well, he knows he is hurt. He saw him get
that's
laced with 3 arrows.
Yeah. But regardless, I mean, that's what comes to his mind, is not himself nearly falling off a cliff. It comes to mind is help others. And that's just, I mean, again, he's the consummate leader.
Yeah, so then Syl wakes him up. It was like Kaladin. He didn't want to open his eyes to wakement, returning to the awful world of pain, a world where defenseless, exhausted men were made to charge lines of archers. That world was the nightmare. Kaladin, the feminine voice was soft like a whisper, yet still urgent. They're going to leave you. Get up. You'll die. I can't go back. Let me go. Something snapped against his face, a slight slap of energy with a sting to it. He cringed. It was nothing compared to his other pains, but somehow it was far more demanding. He raised a hand, swatting. The motion was enough to drive away the last vestiges of stupor. And he wakes up. Hours had passed, and, he can just smell the air smells of blood and worse. And the area around him is just littered with bodies. So he's waking up to the aftermath of all those guys around him got took out by the arrows, and then on the other side you got where the war was actually fought, and the battle for the gem heart.
I mean, first of all, waking up and like knowing the hell that he just lived through, and that's his life now. That's pretty fucking bad. And then being reluctant to even face reality, right? The reality is the nightmare. And then you do conjure up. Syl helps him, but he, literally conjures up the energy to face the world. And then the world is gore, and blood, and death.
Just a complete horror show.
This is like the worst. I mean, do we know as mankind that war is pretty bad? Like,
yeah,
Jesus. I mean, this is fucking brutal, man.
Yeah. And, Syl saves his life because he was just going to lay there and they would have left him. They would have left him there to die. And not only would he have died, they would have just like died by, dehydration. Yeah, it's like, exposure. Man, you're going to have a rough death. Yeah. And then, so he goes, "Do you have a name, spirit?" He asked, forcing himself to his battered feet. And then, as he's waiting for the answer, it appeared that Sadeas' forces had won. At least there didn't seem to be any Parshendi still alive. They'd either been killed or had fled. The plateau they'd fought on seemed exactly like the others they'd crossed. The only thing that was different here was there was a large lump of something in the center of the plateau. It looked like an enormous rock bud, perhaps some kind of chrysalis or shell, a good 20 feet tall. One side had been hacked open, exposing slimy innards. He hadn't noticed it on the initial charge. The archers had demanded all of his attention. That's obviously the beast that they're getting the gem heart from. Mm-hmm. The chasm fiend. Yeah. And then, a name, the Windspring said, her voice distant. "Yes, I do have a name." She seemed surprised as she looked at Kaladin. "Why do I have a name?" "How should I know?" Kaladin said, forcing himself to his feet. And I like that aspect where she's like, yeah. Like, I like there's something, it's just reiterating, like, this thing is different. Why is it like remembering things? Why does it have a name? Why does it remember, like, comes up and starts talking to him? Like, initially when she says his name, he's like, "What the fuck?" How's this thing like speaking to me and having conversations with me? And now it's got a name. And
yeah. Well, what's so interesting about it is, I mean, it's one thing for him to think that, but for the both of them, the fact that she's like, "Yeah, why do I have a name? Oh, look, I have a nickname. Huh? Who would fancy that?" Like, it makes it that much more exceptional, and it brings up that question, like, so what is happening here? I mean, we already know Kaladin. Kaladin's exceptional because he's the focal character of the book to begin with, but everything that we see happening to him, and then this puts an even greater emphasis, and a highlight on it, which is it's great.
Yeah, and so Kaladin goes and he harvests clothes off of the guy, the Leatherface. She's pretty George rude. Hamilton. Like, he's, this guy, just died, and he's like all about Leatherface.
Wasn't that like I think that was like a horror movie, like Chainsaw Massacre or something?
Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah.
So that's you just cast.
Yeah.
That look as this guy.
Yeah. They don't even acknowledge that it's Leatherface. They just put Leatherface in the bridge crew.
Where it's like some reason this guy was wearing someone else's
Massacre dude. That's the guy from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
So if I remember right, I think he was wearing a mask made out of other people's faces, people's skin.
Yes.
So this guy literally wears a face made out of other people's skin, and it's not acknowledged whatsoever.
No, they just call him Leatherface.
It's all sunburned.
His skin's all leathery. It's like, he's wearing someone else's face. Is no one going to talk about this?
And he's like, he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
It's like, this is
just
weird.
Like, I should have been nicer. Should have been nicer. But man, you can get through. You can do it, man. You can do it. I believe in you.
Yeah,
but if you die, if you do die, I'm gonna cut your face off and wear it.
What an interesting character.
Yeah,
such a weird dichotomy within this guy.
But yeah, so Kaladin doesn't cut his face off and wear his skin, but he does. He takes his clothes and his shoes. And
yes, he does. And he feels bad about it.
Yeah, and then a name, the Windspring said, walking through the air to stand beside his face. She was in the shape of a young woman, complete with flowing skirt and delicate feet. Sylphrena, Kaladin repeated, trying on the sandals. Syl, the spirit said. She cocked her head. That's amusing. It appears that I have a nickname. Congratulations. Kaladin stood up, again wobbling. And then Gaz coming up, like, you, back to the bridge. He's like, you got to be fucking kidding me, man.
This is the one time, though, that there is relief. But I remember when I read this, I was like, dude, for real? Like, but then it's like, well, yeah, I guess that does make sense. But yeah, they at least get breaks on the way back. Which when I picture they take a lot of breaks, they're like sitting down eating like McDonald's French fries. Like
Sadeas takes them to get Big Macs. He takes everybody to get Big Macs. It's like, you guys, everybody gets a Happy Meal on me. Good work, guys. Really appreciate the effort. There's no I in team. No I in team. And you guys proved that today.
I like this. Yeah, I like this idea that he's using the most stereotypical or like whatever the word would be. Examples
cliche,
of like
the most cliche fucking coach fucking things.
All right, guys. Good work out there.
Everybody, and when we get back, we're all eating pizza.
I'm lactose intolerant.
Fuck him. Kill him. He's dead. Out. Throw him over the chasm. Anybody else want to talk about the pizza? I try to do something nice for you guys. Oh, man. But yeah, then, and so Gaz seemed angry about something, and then Kaladin's like, shit, I was supposed to die. He's like, that's why I didn't care if I had a vest or sandals. I was at the front. Kaladin was the only one on the first row that had lived. Don't worry, said one of the other bridgemen. They'll let us go slow this time, take lots of breaks, and we'll have a few soldiers to help. It takes at least 25 men to lift a bridge. And then as Kaladin walked, feeling numb, he thought that there was nothing more life could do to him. Nothing worse than the slave's brand with a shash. Nothing worse than losing all he had to the war. Nothing more terrible than failing those he had sworn to protect. It appeared that he'd been wrong. There had been something more they could do to him. One final torment the world had reserved for just for Kaladin, and it was called Bridge 4.
Boom.
Yeah, and the aspect I love of that is it sets it up whereas like Bridge 4 is the ultimate torment, and then just like, you know, as you're at the part where you're at now, they're just like, yeah, we're fucking Bridge 4. Mm-hmm. And like they completely turn it on its head where like from not only is this the worst fucking thing ever, but you're in the worst crew doing the worst thing ever, and now they've completely embraced it and turned it into, you know, a positive thing in their mind.
Yeah, they use it as a great way to stay in shape.
Yeah, it's good calisthenics program.
Well, and then and you know, Kaladin goes as far as healing their wounds, or at least trying to treat them, and then goes as far as, you know, making stew.
Yeah, they're living the life now.
So they're getting food at night.
Living the fucking life. Great workout, getting stew, getting sap poured on their wounds.
Yeah.
Milkweed sap. Fucking.
They're getting Big Macs after every battle.
All the Sadeas hooking them up with Big Macs and pizzas.
Yeah. Everybody's like, Bridge 4, Bridge 4. Yeah. Everybody's cheering them on. Yeah.
Biggest thing is like, you know, when they get their Happy Meals, like the biggest fights that they have is over who gets what toy.
You know what? Gaz takes them all. Yeah, he goes around, he takes every single one of them, and he makes them leave them in the pack. Like you can't even open it up.
He goes and takes every single toy, and then he throws them all over the chasm.
I was gonna say
dick move.
I could see him or like trading it or something, but yeah, that's even worse. And then heckles them for not doing a good enough job.
More toys are all stupid. All stupid toys. All of them are gone. Oh, by the way, I spit in every one of your Big Macs.
No, what a dick. But yeah. No, he'd take gunk from his eye and spread them in with the sauce. He takes everyone, opens it up, squirts something out of his eye, like it holds pus or something.
Snot rockets in front of their face.
Just to be
into their meal. Yeah, he would do that. I could definitely see him doing that.
Yeah, he is a son of a bitch. That is for sure. But yeah, what a fucking chapter. It builds so much in terms of, well, and I don't know what it's going to end up being, but yeah, where it's going from what you've described, it seems like Kaladin does a whole lot of up and down, a whole lot of peak and valley action with old Callie.
Well, and that's what we've seen so far. Like, I mean, we see it at the start. He starts off in a decent spot trying to level up, and then instead of leveling up, it's just in a slave caravan, tries to help someone. They get, Tvlakov kills him because he has a cough. And so then, that drops him a little further down, then gets to the Shatter Plains and is like, all right, well, maybe there's some hope. And then they fucking put him through the ringer here. And then it just, up until the end of chapter 11, that's when it fucking finally valleys out. But yeah, it's a straight down slope for him through this opening part of the book.
It seems to me, no matter what his situation is, he's frustrated. He has regrets, no matter where he's at. He has frustrations, regrets, and
he sets
he's not
absurd goals. Like, I mean, he just went through this. We just talked about what they go through. This and the whole purpose is they are cannon fodder, and he's like, no more die, no more deaths.
Zero.
And it's like, what are you talking about? No more deaths. Look what you just did. Yeah. How?
Although the funny thing is, and I love that I just got there, he finally accomplishes that, and it's to the sacrifice of so many other fucking people.
Yeah. So many people get wiped out because of that. Yeah. It's like, well, none of my guys died.
But of course he's Kaladin, so that's not enough. Right? It's not like, oh well, I was a success then. Throws himself under the bus.
Yeah. Yeah, fucking it's such a great chapter, and like you don't read it, and it's brutal, but it's not like I don't read that and feel like sometimes when you read chapters that are brutal and a lot of bad shit happens, it's tough to read. And it's like it's hard to get through. You don't want to read it, but like every time I read this chapter, I'm like amped to read it, to go through it, even though it is brutal. It's a badass type of brutal.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, and the way he sort of piecemeals it out, the details and everything else, you're right there along with it through the whole ride. It's great.
Now, it might be different, like if we knew the bridge crew, like if we knew the guys that were getting killed on the run with him, and we'd lived with them and, started to grow attached to their character and shit. Yeah, it might be harder to read. But because these are just, it's just Leatherface and rando fucking dudes, like it's not
rando
that big of a
4,
deal.
5, and 6.
Yeah. It's first name, bunch of numbers.
Yeah, so just a bunch of dudes getting hit by arrows, basically.
Yeah.
The guy behind me, the guy to the left, and then Leatherface.
Yeah. Yeah, so
good old Leatherface.
And I'm glad Leatherface is gone, because if that, that would have made the situation even worse. Like if that guy had survived and Kaladin saw him like slicing people's faces off and wearing them, it's like, man, I got to sleep next to this guy. It's like, fuck this, dude. I'm done. I am jumping over the fucking chasm. I'm done.
What if that was like a cultural thing? Like there was a culture, like if he just decided to write that in here. Obviously he didn't, but that was the thing that like they do it in
I'm
their
honoring
culture,
them.
It's how they honor the dead, right? They cut off their face and wear the face.
Yeah.
And Kaladin would probably know how to like treat it appropriately.
Yeah.
And then you'd probably have to strap it on like a hockey mask, like the old school goalies.
Yeah.
God, that's weird.
I don't think that'd be good for your skin. I think that would be bad. I think it's not a good skincare regimen.
That's so gross.
Kaladin would he would definitely need Kaladin to kind of take care of some, growths and shit that would be coming out of his face.
Yeah, there would have to be some sort of treatment that you would do, like you do with bear skin or anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think I'm going to avoid that. I don't think I'm going to wear other people's faces.
Well, I mean, to each his own.
Yeah. Tomato. But I guess so. Next week it'll be a Shallan heavy episode because the next two chapters are Shallan. We're gonna get her trying to get with Yasna and gets turned down, and then makes another stab at the apple, and finally gets her to concede and let her join our crew as her student.
Yeah, that's it's good stuff. I like all those I like both characters. They're both fun to read.
Yeah, it's a much different chapter compared to go from this to what she's doing. Like hers is, a more upbeat, fun, quirky personality.
Well, it's more,
some darkness to it as well. She's obviously got a little bit of darkness to her, but she's also quirky, and it's a more fun more fun feeling than someone who's in slavery and dealing with that kind of shit. As obviously it's going to be a different atmosphere.
Yeah, there's a lot more culture, and sort of, I don't know. You're kind of, I was going to say psychological, but there's plenty of psychological things going on. And
they're fucking kicking back, discussing philosophy and, logic and history and, these kind of things, whereas Kaladin's put through the fucking ringer.
Although, I mean, you do kind of miss, no matter where you're reading, you do kind of miss Gaz just in the background heckling people.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just want him back there heckling Shallan, trying to get with Yasna. Yeah.
Yeah. Gaz with Shallan. That's definitely needs to happen. But so Tim will keep fucking cranking through the book. It's got less than half to go. So getting towards the end of that. Hopefully, you be close to done with that by the time we get through the first section of this book.
Yeah. It's fucking great, man. The characters are super cool. The world's interesting. It seems little bit for me. It was kind of overwhelming. Not overwhelming, but it seemed daunting at first because it's on a whole new world. But as you continue to go through it, the focal points on particular characters, and you're getting to know the world a little bit better. I'm starting to see where things are going, and it's pretty great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward for you to at least be through book 1, because the part 4 it's such a great end to a book, and then there's a lot of cool stuff in the second book, and kind of where some of these characters go and what goes on. I like all 4 books. I like the first 2 books maybe the best. The second book's really fucking good too. But I like these. I like all and the 2 little shorter stories are both good as well. There's a lot of good stuff in there. But the first 2 books are pretty fucking phenomenal.
Right on. I'm enjoying it. So looking forward to continue getting through it.
All right. So we will see everybody here in 2 weeks. So peace out.
Yep. Cool.